House Finance, RJ.
Good evening, City Council. So tonight I want to start with one of the ordinances on the agenda, which is the first read on raising the fund change making account for the library, just to see if you have any questions. And for administrative purposes, I would ask you to consider waiving the first read on that one, the second read if you don't have any issues. So the real main purpose is people have fines, and usually like $1 or $2, and they come in at 20, and it pretty much starts wiping out their ability to make change quickly. So,
is there any particular reason you're limiting it to, $50 or something more?
Just for 25 to 100, just feel like they can manage just with a little bit more money. One less trip to the bank. So.
Won't have to do this next month. Huh?
No, we'll wait at least a year. So, okay. The second thing I wanted to mention, so Friday the 18th was the last day we keep period 13 open, so that we try to capture all of 2018's expenses in there. That signal that's going on at Signal is, I think, arriving this week or getting put in this week, so it's arrived.
It has arrived.
What I am mentioning with that, since period 13 is closed and that is a significant expense and we did not budget in 19, was budgeted in 18, the money's there in 18 to pay for the project, but I will probably need a budget amendment for 19 to cover that expense.
It's a timing issue.
It's a timing issue, yes. So we had a lot of carryover projects. That was one we thought we were going to get in on time. The other item is to see if you have any questions or discussion about it is the hub. We have in the vouchers this week a donation of $5,000 to the hub for their capital program. Phil is here from the hub to address any questions you have on that one.
And that is where?
It's in the vouchers for $5,000.
What would be in there if we haven't discussed that? That we haven't discussed that yet, have we?
We haven't. So
why would it be in the vouchers?
It's an actual payment.
It's an actual payment. It hasn't gone out. It's for your consideration. So that's how we're bringing it as for your consideration. It's in part of the voucher process. So it's not an agreement. It's a request for payment.
I understand it's a request, but why would it be in the vouchers before we discussed it? Does that seem abnormal?
I think it's in the budget, and we have discussed it.
So it's a 2018 expense. We're at the year end.
Right.
I'd like to classify it in 2018.
I see it said December 31st.
So some of it needs a timing, as it comes down to. So it's December 31st. And to get it into our 18 books, the way our system works is I need to get it into the vouchers. Because we closed it on Friday, and if I would have waited to have a discussion afterwards, then it would be in 19, which is not a big deal. I was trying to get into 18. So the reason why it's in there is because I want to try to capture it in 2018 versus 2019.
So were other agencies or other jurisdictions supporting and how are they supporting them?
Phil can probably answer that. So you just maybe Phil, just give us some background on this.
Sure.
Ask. I think it's that most of us, a lot of us know the background. But.
Yeah, no worries. So summer 2018, we started a campaign to retire our debt. We had $300,000 left on the mortgage of the building, so we started the Hub 300 Club. In the early November, we had an anonymous donor that came to us and said, hey, if you're able to raise $50,000, we'll match $50,000. At the beginning of December, the Harriet Cheney Coles Foundation came alongside and said, we will also put in $50,000 if you raise $50,000. So we had the opportunity to raise $50,000 and receive $100,000.
Perfect.
So great opportunity. And I know a couple members here have joined that pledge during that time.
Took you $50,000?
No, they weren't the anonymous donor.
Yeah, I want to talk to you
Okay.
because I have
All right.
a foundation.
So we don't have in this particular campaign for $50,000. We did not have any other municipalities that stepped up to say, hey, there's an opportunity here. We had other businesses, other individuals. Other grants that were able to be attributed to that. I was made aware of the public, I'm trying to think of the name of the fund, Public Assistance Fund, that there were some monies at the end of the calendar year 2018 and to apply. And so at the time of the application, $5,000 is what we needed to reach that full 50, to have that match. And so that ended up putting us over the top for achieving the full $50,000. So the $5,000 actually turned into $15,000.
And just by way of background, not to interrupt, but I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago, Councilmember Copelson asked if the city on a regular basis would put $10,000 in their budget to support local nonprofit service providers. This is the fund. I think we had $10,000 in there, RJ. None of it had been spent.
There has been 3,000 of it spent. 500 was on the badges that we did earlier this year. Another 2,500 went for the lemonade day stand at the Valley Chamber.
So it was budgeted in 2018, and then with the 5,000, if the council approves it tonight, would it come out of 2018?
Right now, that's what's set for what we did in the vouchers.
So
That's why it appears.
Correct.
Okay. The other question I have is just help me remember something, Phil. Don't you participate in the tourism commission and receive funds from them too as grants?
So the lodging tax commission,
Tax, that's
right,
the right word.
right. And so yes, we apply for funding through the lodging tax to help pay for marketing and operations of funds that put people back into the Liberty Lake hotels.
Okay. And that's only comprised of Liberty Lake hotels, isn't it?
Correct.
Okay. And how much funding did you get from them?
I want to say that we received $20,000 this year from them. And then City of Spokane Valley, we also apply because we're right on the border and we benefit their hotels as well.
Which one are you? I mean,
technically,
I've heard both. I've heard that you really are in Liberty Lake, and I've heard that he's really not in Liberty Lake. So which way are you?
where the dotted line's drawn, we are in Liberty Lake. You can't get to us from Liberty Lake without driving through Spokane Valley.
That's okay, but you are.
But we are in Liberty Lake.
Good. Now we know from the horses.
Well, I also believe what we just did in December is that we allocated the $17,500, which you were awarded from the hotel motel tax.
Right, so it's the
In
same.
December, but also in December, you're awarded $20,000 for this year.
Okay, yeah. So this lodging tax is a reimbursement. So we have to spend the money in order to get the money back. So the $17,500 was for expenses that we incurred in 2018,
Right.
running these programs and events and
Then you
activities.
were just given
$20,000 will be for this calendar year 2019.
Right, so you're asking for another $5,000.
Well, that's for operating, marketing, to put heads in beds and bring people in.
Right, this $5,000 is totally separate. The money we get from lodging tax could not go towards capital campaign.
That's correct.
But, I mean, in fair disclosure, it does allow you to free up other money to
Absolutely.
put towards your capital.
Absolutely.
So let's don't act like, you know, it
For
doesn't
sure.
do any good to you. But it just, personally, I find it kind of heavy all at one time. So I'll be voting no against it, not against you,
Yeah.
not against the hub. It's just a repetitive amount of money for one location.
Sure.
Okay?
Any other questions I can answer for you?
Could you make a reference to the award you guys got?
Thank you. So on Friday night, the Spokane Valley Chamber recognized the Hub Sports Center as a nonprofit of the year, which was awesome to be honored. There's a lot of great nonprofits here in the Valley, and to be one of the ones in the final three was awesome.
Yeah, it was
And
awesome.
no, we're thrilled to be recognized for that, and look forward to doing more of what we do.
So out of three, you're number one.
I'm sorry?
You were voted number one. weren't you?
Correct.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So remind me what the time, so you're about to pay, assuming the vouchers are approved, so you're about to pay off the mortgage, and it's been how long since you've got 10 years you've been there?
Yeah, so this fall will be the end of my 10th year. So I'm in my 10th year right now. So the $150,000 reduces our debt to under $70,000 on the building. So we still have that little bit to go. But what it's done is it's really given us a solid footing to continue to do what we do and to reallocate some funds, to Odin's point, into our outreach and into our community activities that we were having to pay to just pay rent.
Well, I remember sitting here however many years ago it was, probably 9 years ago, you know, asking us in the valley to chip in to help buy the place.
Absolutely.
Huge, huge accomplishment in that amount of time.
Well, thank
did
you.
a great job.
Thank you.
In your initial tour of duty, I'll call it, what was the balance originally on the building to be paid?
So the original agreement was to pay $3.2 million.
So in that, I'd say 10 years of tenure, you can recognize then that as the amount that you've raised through capital campaign initiatives.
Well, and it's really, so 6 years is when we started the capital campaign, 6 years ago. Yeah, so we, at the end of 2017 in December, we put 1.6 million down. And over the course of this last year, we've paid off another 1.5 million. No, we've made really good progress on that, no, I'm excited to have that for the most part behind us and to continue to look forward to the future. So, cool. Thank you all very much. I appreciate the opportunity to talk. Thanks,
Phil.
So, the only other thing that I would want, that I have to mention tonight is, it's in February we're going to get ready to send out our telephone and internet RFP. So Patera is the one that handles our infrastructure right now on that for phones and internet, providing that service for us. So we're going to go out for an RFP and see what other companies are out there. And then IT contract, that one is going to go out a little bit later than this spring. So that is the other one that we're working on to get out the door. So I did send council last week kind of it's a backup recovery system that we have with High Technique, and they are now called Exec Tech. In case you see a weird email, they got Exec Tech. They were purchased by them back in late fall of this last year.
Yeah, I would like to see a huge reevaluation of the services they provide, just because technology and things have changed so dramatically since we first started using them. And I know we've had server downtime, and there's no reason for that. They should have enough redundant service that we should have at least 99+% uptime with that service.
Correct. But you need to go with the 5 nines, I believe, is what we're looking at. Right now. I think we're at the 4 nines, which gives them 9 hours a year.
Far exceeded that.
Yes. Any questions? Other questions on vouchers?
$72,000 for a lot more?
That's her business right there.
That's for one.
Yeah.
The other one's almost 50. What do you cut with them?
Golf course. Yeah,
What's the life of
gold-plated grass. It depends on the mower and it depends on the hours. And actually, they would have that life expectancy. We have a life expectancy worksheet in the packet.
So how they
Transfer hours to
equal
miles.
to miles.
Yeah, we've got a couple that are way up there. So.
You never see that. Man, yes. I couldn't spend that.
You could drive along.
We can drive along.
They may go faster than the golf course.
Question.
Yeah.
Under Russell Corbett, we got $27,472 for security cameras. I know those are the cameras that we saw when we were in Yakima, but I must be confused. I thought we ordered 2. This is 4.
I don't have the invoice in front of me, but there were several pieces and parts to those cameras. So, like Pavilion has pods that go with it. So I think that's what you're seeing on the count.
It was $27,000. I remember the cameras were a little over $7,000, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great buy. So if there was, let's say, $15,000, $16,000 for 2 cameras, there's another $10,000. Is that for miscellaneous things to support those 2 cameras?
Yeah, the agenda bill that was passed actually back in August of 2018 talked about 4 cameras, 1 for each park, and the necessary equipment to go along with them.
4, great, super.
Yeah. And that was approved for spent up to $35,000.
Thank you. Answer my question.
One other question, if you got just a second. Can you talk to us a little bit more about the faux contract, please, with the extension of an increased labor rate?
if you don't mind.
So, when we embarked on plowing our roads ourselves, one of the things we realized is if we got those back-to-back-to-back snow events, our crews couldn't handle it, so we needed a backup contractor to support us. In the contract that they negotiated, I believe it's a 3-year contract, it allowed for an annual adjustment to their salaries, so that's one of the changes that we're making, and that's because their union contract adjusted their salaries, so that increase is in keeping with their union contract. The other adjustment was they asked for a minimum call-out of 8 hours, which is new to the contract. We did check, or I didn't, Stephen checked with others like Spokane Valley who uses PO a lot, and it was in their contract. Other contractors that we talked to, they wanted a guaranteed minimum so that every year, regardless if it didn't snow or drop, you still had to pay so much. So Stephen and I decided that we thought it was fair to have an 8-hour call out because they don't appreciate being called out for 2 or 3 hours, and that we will manage it, that if we do call them out, we will use them for 8 hours so that there wouldn't be a negative price impact on the city calling someone out for 5 hours and then having to pay for 8. That wouldn't be in the cards. But really what happens, and I don't know the exact number, I know how many pieces of equipment we have, but we probably have a half a dozen guys that can only work so many hours in a cycle. This year we haven't used them at all. So, and if we don't use them at all, we pay 0. So that's the information related to the contract amount of PO. So adjustment of their hours consistent with the union contract, and then minimum call out of 8 hours.
Okay. If you look on Exhibit B for the 2017 cost proposal that was provided to the council.
I'm sorry, where are you?
Exhibit B.
B?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He was looking on this if you want. What I want to talk about is the extension. If you have somebody that's making $62.87 an hour as a Teamster, and his overtime rate is listed as $66, that's not time and a half. So what are they actually asking for overtime?
So I don't know, and I'm not going to try to figure it out right here. If there's a question, we could defer this and have Stephen come answer that question. So the hourly rate and the overtime rate, you're right, they're not getting time and a half.
Right.
And I don't know the difference.
I don't either, but I'd
As to
like to know.
why.
And at what point would we be paying for an overtime situation?
Again, that's something Stephen would have to
Yeah,
answer.
because, if we're only calling them out for 8 hours, then I don't see us getting into an overtime situation.
I think overtime is triggered by more than 40 hours a week.
Well, right, but is it based on us needing them over 40 hours a week, or they've already worked 40 hours a week for PO and then 8 for us, so then we're forced into paying them overtime?
I wouldn't think so, but I would need Stephen to confirm that.
Yeah. So if it's not time sensitive, it would be great if we did postpone this until we.
As long as it doesn't snow between now and February 5th, we'll be just fine.
Doesn't the other continue on, the other contract or not?
The current one that's in place, that one is still,
Did it expire?
Effective until,
2005?
we'll have check, I'll get you the right number before the next meeting on that one.
To be honest, why we're late getting it to this late in the season. What Stephen was really working on towards the end of December was an agreement with a local contractor that would just come in and operate our equipment. And he spent a couple weeks with them to find out that they wanted a guaranteed minimum. So in other words, you were going to pay a flat amount whether you used them or not. And it took them until the end of around Christmas time to figure out he wasn't going to make any headway. That's why he came back with this. So I can't answer the details if he was here. So if you want to defer to the 5th, that's fine.
So let me make a note on the agenda here.
and just so you can tell them, one of the questions would be surrounding, we have these breakdowns of labor costs for supervisor, foreman, operator, teamster, and laborer. How many of those would we be assigned? And do we have a say-so on what we get to work for us?
The answer is yes.
Does he have all teamsters and they're all going to come out at $68 instead of laborers for $60? So it's just some questions.
We decide who we get and how many we get and exactly which trade he uses he'd have to answer that question.
Thank you so much. That's it, other than that, it looked great.
Okay, good evening. I have a couple of items on the agenda tonight, as Councilmember Langford mentioned. 2 pieces of equipment for the golf course. They are part of our fleet rotation. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And then the asset management software. I thought I'd share a couple of slides with you on that. That's also on the agenda for your review and hopeful approval tonight. This is just an example of what some, and it's kind of small, I apologize, of what some of the screenshots will look like on the software itself. It'll actually pin the locations. We're a small city, so we'll see what kind of usefulness that can provide. I know that when you click on each of those pins, it'll provide all the data for that said facility up to the minute information. So then the bottom spreadsheet shows the 30-year projections, kind of how much we can anticipate in costs and expenses for basic maintenance and repairs and replacement of systems.
These are just examples, not.
They're just examples, correct?
I saw it.
Yeah. It's very, very detailed. So but at the end, it will provide an overall report, which I will provide to you, so you don't have to, unless you ask for the detail, which it might be interesting to see that. And then this is just a little bit of information about them. The thing that caught my eye that I really wanted to share with you on this is the North Idaho College uses them, Boise School District, City of Vancouver, and City of Bend, and I have chatted with a couple of those, and they do come very highly recommended. I wanted to bounce questions off of them to see if it was user friendly, and I had all kinds of questions, and they're very, very happy with this software and this company.
Jen, will you be the person who is administering this program?
For now, yes.
Okay, so you're going to have any kind of backup?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, probably Trevor Reagan will be my backup. He's our facilities guy right now, our main project manager of facilities.
Okay.
So he would be backup on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
So how many square feet of property do we own? And I'm not talking about improved, not just land. I noticed in the worksheet that you sent out, it was under 500,000 according to them.
Yeah, it's
so
not
how
very
much?
much. I'd have to check on that. Did I not put it in the packet?
I thought it was 150,000.
I think you're right.
If it is, I may have missed it, and I apologize.
Yeah, I can find out.
Well, I'm just wondering, is this expenditure, when it's compared to the square footage cost, and then compared to those other people that you talked to who were probably a lot larger and had a lot more facility square footage than we do,
right?
Is it really going to be cost effective for us that the 6 of us, you, our good administrator and engineers, can't say that building needs repair? We need to spend $30,000 plus annual fee to tell us that?
The $30,000 is an initial fee because they come in and do the assessment.
I understand. I'm just asking the question. I'm just being straight up with you.
Yes,
is why do I need them to tell me the building needs maintenance?
Because currently we aren't staffed according to having a specialized position on staff to make these recommendations. We're just repairing them.
Yeah.
And so when we get in a bind and we have issues that our staff can't fix or...
What kind of issues?
Well, like...
To give you an example, this weekend we lost hot water here at City Hall, and then we also lost 2 hot water tanks over at Trailhead. So we had to get those reflects, I know. So I think we don't have the expertise or on staff unless we hire it. So we call a plumber, we call an electrician, we call a mechanical HVAC guy. They come out. When they come out, there's usually a delay. We have to get estimates. We have to put them on the agenda and get them approved.
And we're relying on a vendor to make a recommendation.
Yeah. I don't want to get in a contest with you. I'm just simply trying to satisfy my own inquiries, okay? And I'm not against it. I'm just trying to justify it. So you have this. Now how does that prevent you from having to go out and get a plumber?
It doesn't.
Very good. So how does that prevent having to
We need to
get
answer
more
that
than?
question differently.
Well, it's the truth.
Well,
It
I
doesn't
would,
prevent
I
you
would
because
s-
it's a software program.
well, I would say though that, let's say hypothetically that the HVAC system
Mhm.
or the air conditioning in City Hall is on its last leg and it's got 6 more months of life. Then we'll know it, we'll put it in the budget, and we can line it up before it actually fails.
That's great, and like I do at my home and my rentals, I have them checked every year because I have people in the building that I'm responsible for. So I call R&R, they come out and they charge me a bunch of money, and they go out and certify the fireplaces and the HVAC and the water heaters, which I just had replaced, and so I know they're expensive. And that's called preventative maintenance. And it doesn't cost, for my houses, it doesn't cost $27,000, okay, to tell me that HVAC's getting ready to go out. So I'm arguing for sake of argument, all right? But I'd still like to hear the real basic answers for that.
Could I just offer, no, you can hear me. Again, one of the reasons why we're looking at this is because one of the things we talked about in a great depth and detail as it relates to the strategic plan is developing an asset management plan. There's an initial cost to go in and assess the condition of your facilities in order to figure out which of your facilities are going to need a roof in 5 years, in 10 years, etc. But it provides you with a basis for actually doing some long-term stability, financial stability planning for planning ahead, not waiting until we're in reactive mode. The roof leaks, we have to fix it.
And just in order to save your voice, look, I know y'all want it, okay, I'm not really stupid. So I know you want this, okay, but we have engineers on staff, okay, we got inspectors on staff, and we got 4 or 5 buildings that would need to be looked at over a year. I just think it's an exorbitant fee to pay for something that we can do in-house. That's all, thank you.
Question? Oh, go ahead, yeah.
Thanks. Jen, I want to recognize the staff in your efforts to be systemic and organized approach to asset management. I think that the tool is correctly selected for the magnitude and scale of the operations of the city. I value the work and I value the tool, and I look forward to its result.
Go ahead, Mike.
Question, Jen. Will this system be able to tie in some of the equipment, things of that sort there?
At some point, but not at this. That would be another part of the software, so it's not part of this.
When this first came up last year, when it was first suggested, I immediately was in favor of it. For the simple reason that I'm very familiar with a very simplified system such as this we use in our telecommunications company. We had 1,000 pieces of equipment in 7 states, 700 just locally. There was no way I found that we could keep track of preventive maintenance when this stuff was going on. And I found that without that system, it was thousands of dollars at the time, it was hard for me to pull the trigger. Once I did that, it paid for itself in the first 6 months. The benefit I see for the city, as small as we are, and the maximum we will grow, by starting out with this now and plugging everything in, as we grow, we will be able to have a handle in advance, anticipating what's going to go on. And the benefit is, the city's going to go on long after we're here, so we're going to have new engineers, new gens, new things of the sort here, and we don't have to rely on just the engineer or somebody who's got it inspected. We can utilize that. So I think it's a great system. I'm much in favor of it.
Now, when Mike and I went to the TLG conference last year, one of the things I came away with, and I know I've mentioned it before, is we're growing up as a city. We're 18 years old now, and getting to the data-based decision making is so important. We're doing that with the software you guys implemented with tracking the jobs and what people are doing in their locations and everything. And I think this is just another step in the right direction of being able to make future long-term decisions and near-term decisions based on the data, and to have it all in one place, and to be able to recreate the information, probably a lot quicker using something like this than having to go back and, spreadsheets are only good for so much. So I would be in favor of moving forward with this. Does anybody else have anything on this one?
I agree. I'd be highly in favor of moving forward with this. Remind me, Jen, I can't remember About 30,000 upfront cost, but what's the annual?
It's just under 5,000 for the software.
So, like, perfect. It's organized, data-driven decisions.
Bob?
Organized.
I just wanted to make a comment. You know, I've been in favor of it. We discussed it in conjunction with our strategic plan. I think it's an integral part of our strategic plan and long-term planning and facilities planning. One of the reasons we developed a strategic plan was that we don't want to be reactionary any longer. We like to plan for the future. And I think this is a good tool for us to do that with. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Okay.
Yeah, you're not gonna leave me out here by myself. I love this program.
We like
I know we can.
Could you give up
Your nose is great.
I love it.
Your nose is great.
Mr. Langford, could you get closer to the mic, please?
Okay, before I get into the rest of the slideshow, the public art policy we will discuss later on in the workshop. I handed out some paperwork for you now, so I apologize if you already had it and didn't want me to print it, but I thought it'd be helpful to refer to. The event schedule, we are already busy for summer, so that's a list of some of our confirmed events. A couple of them, dates are pending. But it's going to be another busy year, and this is not even complete yet.
Jen, I have a question. I know we're going to discuss the public arts policy. With your email, you also sent a copy of the final strategic plan.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to be discussing that too, or can I comment on that?
You could comment on it now. I think we have time.
Well, I just have in looking over the final strategic plan for the group, I think they did a great job, you know, with the plan overall. I just have one problem with it is, and I kind of maybe just overlooked it, but the city council voted unanimously to, maybe not unanimously, maybe they didn't vote unanimously, but anyway. We approved changing the funding on that from the admissions tax to the general fund, and I don't think a strategic plan really reflects that change. It still shows the source of revenues being the admissions tax, which I don't think is really accurate.
Okay.
We'll update that.
Yep, we can update that.
Also, when you talk about, or when the commission talks about their 5-year strategic plan, it just so happened that their numbers for every year's spending kind of match that tax plan.
Mm-hmm.
Just worked out that way. So with less than that available now, that means that they have two options. Either they can explain to us how they're going to raise the rest, or they can go back and readjust their 5-year strategic plan to show spending relative to the income.
Okay.
How important is it that we get to this tonight? The reason I'm asking is because there's a lot of things that need to be gone over, and I got your copy of the public policy, okay? It's nowhere near ready for adoption. And I don't know how you feel about it, but tonight it'd just be kind of like, okay, but we can read the material.
If I could,
I thought tonight was discussion.
it's not just discussion.
But we can read it, and instead of using it the time at a workshop, but I don't want to get off
We're looking for
asking a lot of different questions at that time instead of right now, unless you want to go over them now.
Well, I'd say we have a workshop scheduled, so we
We
could
do.
use that. Yeah.
That's why I'm asking is how important it is to take our time up with it tonight.
Well, I think there's some people who have some pretty specific questions for tonight, so maybe when we get to it, we'll set up just to put a time limit on the workshop for tonight, and then we can always
We can
continue.
go around individually and get all the council members' comments. I know Jen is looking for feedback,
Yeah.
so.
Right.
We can at least get the feedback started, and then they'll probably have, my guess would be we'll probably have another workshop to follow up on that, would be my assumption.
Very good.
For future agenda items, there would be a Centennial Trail invoice probably coming in the next couple of months for the Centennial Trail coordinating agreement. Just a heads up on that.
Have we had any activity up there yet?
No, we need to get the final signature on the agreement from the City of Spokane. So, yeah. And then an inland chess agreement. It's a recreational service that the chess group wants to provide at the library. We're going back and forth with Sean on that. Hope to have that in the next meeting or two for your approval. And the park cameras that Councilmember Kennedy mentioned are scheduled for the first install on January 24th at Pavilion Park. So you'll see some activity up there and some big 360 cameras. So they will be noticeable for sure. And then just a quick what's going on in our world. We've got the trailhead pump replacement happened last week. They pulled the pump. I believe it was installed. Do you remember what you said?
He said 50 years ago.
Yeah, so it's old.
Yeah,
And
saw the crane over there.
Yeah, so it was pulled, and then they pulled the shaft, and they did some testing, and we're moving forward on that one. We had an Eagle Scout, a Life Scout project, just was completed a couple of weekends ago. He made 4 of these picnic tables to be set at Orchard Park. And we definitely could use the furnishings there, so that'll be helpful. And our Rocky Hill project on the left, they're tearing apart those boxes, and I thought that was a good picture because it shows how rotten that wood is. It was in really dire condition, so it's going to be a good thing to have the cement boxes in their place. They will be painted red when the weather kind of warms up and is conducive to paint. It'll be the barn red that you see on the restroom, and obviously adopted from the barn.
What kind of maintenance is needed on painting cement? I mean, how often are we going to have to?
We haven't touched them since we installed the Arboretum in 2011.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, they're really low maintenance.
Jen, do we have on the schedule of our planters right over here? Are they starting to deteriorate also? They're all wood?
No, these are concrete. Same
concrete.
exact as, yeah, they have a wood grain to them.
Oh.
And those ones are painted a brownish tone, so they look like wood, but they're the same exact box as these. Yeah. And could you push play? This is, I will say, is a day in the life of a snowplow driver. It's a night in the life of a snowplow driver. So this is what our guys go through. And the first thing I thought when I was watching this was, wow, he's driving really fast.
Is this when they're on their way to the donut shop?
Yeah. So kind of a different perspective that not too many people get to see.
So you can see the before and after on the left and right hand side.
And you can see, I just imagine hitting that curb, because I've heard the stories of them hitting curbs, and I think to myself, oh my gosh, he should slow down because he's going to hit that curb and he's going to throw him through the windshield.
How fast was he really going?
Oh, probably 20, I don't know. Yeah. It's really slow, but to me, I'd be in the big truck going, oh, I'd be creeping and crawling because I wouldn't want to hit a curb. So it just makes you get a different view on what those guys do.
And you said we have, what, 6 people trained now?
Yeah, we have about 6 or 7. Yeah, 2 CDL drivers. What's that?
As operators?
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
They're supposed to be out if the weather.
They're scheduled to be out, yeah, at 3 o'clock in the morning tomorrow to plow trails.
Already de-ice?
Yeah, yep. He's got a good layer down, so.
Talking about what's going on with y'all, what happened to the gate at the park?
It went away.
It's gone.
It went away per Clear Risk's recommendation. So we removed it the next day.
So our cameras is kind of an answer to it
Yeah.
at this point?
Yeah. Yeah.
Have we had any further comments from the one citizen, across the street who was instrumental in getting that gate there in the first place?
I haven't heard anything. No. Mm-mm. Any other feedback or comments? That's all I have.
Thanks. You done good.
So we have one more item, Councilmember Kaminskas and the council. This is Lisa's report. She put together a written report so she wouldn't have to read it. Her voice is a little on the mend, I'll say. It's a lot better today than it was this morning. But I thought I'd just help out by going through it, and then if you have questions between Lisa and I, we can answer them. I know planning and engineering and building has been very busy, so One of the things I was gonna mention is the naming of the Henry Road, Diagonal Road. So tonight, it's on the agenda. You can do one of three things. You can approve it to be named Diagonal, or you can defer it to next meeting and give us some other suggestions, because we're out of suggestions, so it's gonna have to come from you guys.
I got a suggestion.
Uh-oh.
But then we have to check to make sure it's an eligible.
Is it appropriate?
Well, if the ladies would leave, it's appropriate. No, it's appropriate. What do you mean it has to, what does it have to match?
So it has to declare, I think it's 911, so there's a group of people in Spokane County, and I believe they're attached to emergency services. They look at every single street name, because you can't name something that has been named in somewhere else in the county uses that name, or it's a name that competes with the direction of it, or whatever. So it has to go through a screening process.
You mean like
Diagonal Road
Appleway?
passed. But-
Something like Appleway, Boom.
Yeah, you couldn't name it a name that's already
Can't use too
been
many
used.
of those.
But there could be a little old street in Medical Lake that we don't know about that has a name. That's why they check it all out and make sure that it's.
I'd love to bring it back and see what our ideas are.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can come up with something a little more creative than
Sure.
North Diagonal.
Okay. That's fine. I'm gonna move
Why
on.
can't we name it something? 'Cause one
You
half
can't
of that-
name
One
it.
half of that street goes the other way.
Yeah, you could.
So there's one.
Lisa can't hold herself back.
Turn.
We can't call it Old Henry?
She trotted up to, she's gonna say something.
I got to tell you, so the rules are pretty prescriptive on this, and this is, again, the basis of this is for emergency service providers. Anything north of East Sprague Avenue is north, anything south of East Sprague Avenue is south, and the east-west divider for the county is Division Street in Spokane. It's a really simple thing. If you come up with a name, I can check in Scout to see if it's an existing name, and you can't do different variations or different like prefixes, suffixes. That's not allowed unless it's on the same alignment, which is exactly why we have to name the new street that's going in for the school district as North Henry something. Because it's private, it could either be North Henry Lane or North Henry Court. Are the rules according to the 911 addressing.
We're making fun of it, but we understand the security.
And for the record, and I put this in my email to the county attorney or the city attorney, and that I was intentionally trying to be uninspired because I've never done a street naming process that hasn't turned into a political quagmire.
Well, it's not gonna change tonight. Believe me, I got a name that is not on any of the streets in Spokane County.
For good reason.
No!
Langford Lane?
You're gonna love it.
Langford Lane?
No, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it.
Oh, we should. Stay tuned, I'm excited, I want to hear it.
You'll love it.
Go ahead, Katie.
Okay, the planning commission approved minutes from the December 19th meeting, and they also had a public hearing on the street treaty amendments on January 9th, and they elected a chair and a vice chair. The chair is Phil Foyer, was elected chair, and Charlie Matthews was elected vice chair. Development project, so I'm going to go through these fairly quickly. The project right adjacent to the new high school, Katera/Wolf, is no longer. The project will still develop, but right now it's being managed by Centennial. They are the owner of the property. So the 400 and some unit apartment complex is still in the works. The engineering is still being done. The development is still being done, but Wolf and Katera are no longer, am I saying that correctly? Wolf is no longer involved.
So what they did was they basically, Centennial stepped into the role of applicant. They waived their 120-day decision. The state law says we have to grant a decision in 120 days based upon the last submittal. I was waiting on a revision that what I have today is not approvable. And so Centennial has asked for an extension. They will be submitting the revised plans that we've already laid out, what needs to be revised based upon the technical review, and that they're anticipating coming in. We'll be scheduling a meeting for later in the month with their engineer to help keep that moving forward.
Very good.
Can you anticipate any fundamental changes in the application?
No, actually what I understood, and this I heard both from Centennial and from Wolf, is that they were able to make the revisions based upon the road relocation. Katera/Wolf declined to proceed with their purchase agreement because of labor costs, and that they felt like it wasn't going to pencil for them with the current labor costs. But Centennial wants to move forward with an established entitlement, which once they have a decision, they have an entitlement to develop. So,
They don't have to.
I'm sorry?
They don't have to. Correct. I mean, once they get the permit, they don't have to act on it.
They have to act on it within 5 years.
5 years. Thank you.
Following along, the annexation of Central Valley School District's property will be February 19th. And Lisa's already in contact with the county to start some of the mapping revisions that have to take place in the land use designation associated with the annexation. There's a handful of new businesses in town.
Key that observation on the annexation, specifically the acquisition. Central Valley School District closed on the property about a couple of days ago. I think you may have noticed that.
Hey, Dan.
Can you use your mic?
Yeah, really can't hear you.
Just a footnote on usage. The district closed on the property last week, a couple of days, and you may have noticed a quickly erected fence surrounding the property. The district took this as action to protect themselves from liability trespass, whereas the prior owner, Spokane Gun Club, probably didn't have very deep pockets related to any kind of liability incident. The district was protecting the citizens and the people who patrons of the district from any untoward actions that happen on the property. So it's fenced.
Good.
Thank you.
I'll just touch on a few new businesses in town. 2225 North Moulter added, it's a kind of a warehouse office / garage space. Boat electronics supplier, a CBD distributor, and a CrossFit training center. That is marijuana oil, as I was explained to me. It does not require a special license.
It's for
It's a
pain relief.
distributor. Yeah.
Really?
Does not require a special license from the state.
So we had to research that, just so you know, because our code talks about the marijuana distributors, retailers, manufacturers, processors, as those, it specifically states that those that are required to get a permit from the Cannabis and Liquor Board. I reviewed the state regs and I couldn't figure out whether it was required or not. I actually had to call them and was advised that yes, that is a loophole in the state law. They're not required to to be licensed, and that there is some talk about changing that in the future. But as it stands today, CBD is non-regulated.
2208 North McKinsey Lane got a new tenant with Offset Solar, who took 2 of the suites. 21801 East Country Vista. I believe this is near Popular Companions, and Fujiyama is a new dental office, I believe.
So they're fully occupied, it sounds like.
Sounds like it.
That's great.
We took 2 suites. 2326 North McKinsey was custom fabrication and design. 22011 East Country Vista is coming out of the ground as a dental office, an eye office, and a cafe, that's a coffee shop, that's Wake Up. And then major remodel 1334 North Whitman within the Imaging Suite. So a lot of larger scale projects going on. Code amendments, I'm just going to touch on the highlights here. The street tree ordinance is under a lot of discussion back and forth, and Lisa's done a really good job receiving input from developers, industry experts, and our own landscape people, trying to build a ordinance related to street trees that will give our community investment in trees for decades and decades to come. There's some trees that we've planted in the past that haven't survived well, and trees that have created maintenance issues. So we're trying to get it right this time. Design review ordinance amendments. We wanted to clarify some design review committee work. Am I probably not doing a good job on this, Lisa? Planning Commission workshop in February. Possible hearing in March or April related to design review. Landscape ordinance, again, like the tree ordinance, under discussion, a lot of experts, good feedback. The other item that I'll mention, this is a new thing that is coming out and we were aware of it. It's called the 5G small cell investments that right now Verizon is tackling in the Spokane area. It would be something that is regulated by the FCC. We cannot collect a tax on it, is my understanding. We need to follow the federal laws. They do pay a set amount per site per year to offset the costs that we would be impacted by. There's a lot more information that we need, but basically these, does anyone here have a technical background that can explain it better than I do? I'm looking at Hugh and Dan.
They're local, comparable to local area networks, smaller in physical footprint. They require these antenna features then to be distributed in more in count and closer together than what you think of traditionally as mobile phone tower. Rather than having really large digital smokestacks, we're going to have smaller digital smokestacks attached to our utility poles.
Yeah.
So I think what I read is carefully is that we as a city, for example, will not have sufficient power to change or alter their deployment path. Should for any reason we find it objectionable that these things start getting stuck to utility poles, there is not a lot that we as a city can do.
They're regulated by the federal government, and so we would need to be in lockstep.
So there is some that we can do, and we've already been researching some model ordinances, which is what some other cities are doing. We have to change our code, though, to accommodate 5G and FCC regulations have already gone into effect to talk about what they call shotgun timelines for approval. So Verizon is already talking to us about, we have not gotten the application yet, but they'll be moving forward with the franchise agreement. It's going to look a little different than the franchise agreements that you've gotten in the past because of the differences. As Katie was saying, there's we won't be able to charge utility tax, but we will be able to charge per unit. We can't, I don't believe we can prohibit them from being located in any particular zone, but we can say where, and we can provide reasonable aesthetic, reasonably implemented aesthetic.
Defendable. We have to be able to defend our design criteria and standards. The franchise with them would come back to the council for approval, but we're just at the beginning of the discussion.
But we will have to change our code. So I've actually got Verizon coming into the Planning Commission in February to talk about what they're doing elsewhere and to share with the Planning Commission as a first blush. As I said, I'm doing some research and we'll be looking at some other codes. What I can say is that the city of Spokane adopted their small cell. They were the first in the state to adopt their small cell regulations. They adopted it before I was planning director, but I experienced some of the problems of being the first out of the gate. So we'll make certain that we do the best that we can while still meeting the requirements of the FCC regulations that have come into effect.
Is there a deadline that we have to meet for these changes?
Well, so actually we have timelines that we have to approve these things. The reason why I'm putting this on a fast track is because Verizon is targeting deployment here in like the third quarter of this year. So what that means is I really have to have the code in place by the third quarter of this year, so that I think the actual deployment, I think we have 60 or 90 days to approve that, but I have to have the code in place, and if I don't have the code in place, we will be steamrolled by the FCC regulations.
Thanks.
So Lisa went to the, I'd say, highly aesthetically oriented development code and planning regulations we should persist with. I want to make sure the same is applied to these like little digital smokestacks.
Absolutely.
Please, use the greatest of care to understand what it is that we're capable of. Thanks.
And then finally, her report, I'm going to do a lightning round of project updates, so I'll go really fast. The traffic signal, the mast arms have arrived. It will be going in this week. We are required to flash the signals for 5 to 7 days. I don't know the exact number. Scott knows the number of days. Then it will go through the cycle of red, green, yellow. Okay. The signal at Madsen is being bid in the next week or two and awarded. As you know, we received funds from TIB for that. Our goal is to install that signal this year also.
Are we, I know we discussed this before, are we adding a non-performance clause in there based on the delays we had with getting the arms for the one at Signal? So that if they don't, the contractor doesn't deliver or the supplier doesn't deliver the needed equipment by a certain date, they're paying a penalty?
So it's called liquidated damages, and I will have to check the contract. This supplier, I don't know that it is subject, I will have to read the contract to know what we can and can't do with suppliers of mast arms.
I know a lot of residents have been frustrated with the electrical box that went in a Signal, now they can't see, and obviously we planned that based on the original ship date and their control. Okay, thanks.
So then the Harvard overlay and widening, there's 2 projects there. One is the overlay of the deck of the existing bridge, which we received TIA funding for. That's in design right now. And then the widening of the structure is in design as well by KTFF. The Public Works Yard, this year we're just looking at grading and fencing. Next year we'll be looking at utilities and frontage improvements. But this year we're just making incremental improvements because the weather's been cooperative. Orchard Park, Vista and Calvico installing power to the restrooms this week. Other than that, the project's on hold till the spring when we can start planting and painting things. Mission Avenue sidewalks, that's the sidewalk going in on the north side of Mission, is in survey work right now by Parametrics. It's on the north side of Mission by Selkirk Middle School. So if it's over in the River District, there's a big gap of missing sidewalk. And then finally, the Trailhead Pump Project that Jen just showed you. We do have to clean the screens, which is probably fairly normal after 50 years, but the new pump will go in.
Question on Mission Avenue surveys. Has there been any conflicts or confrontations with residents? This will reflect on compromised public right of way with residents.
So interesting enough, there's a gentleman and a wife that live, their fence encroaches into the public right of way. They have probably 4 or 5 blue spruces that are in the public right of way. They have been amazing. They're willing to, without any fanfare, allow us to go into what they've been taking care of for a long, long time and move the fence back and remove the trees. And they're very, very, very cooperative. I don't want to say their names, they're in the south this year, but very cooperative.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll take a quick 5-minute break, then we'll start the actual meeting.
I'll explain to you.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for our many blessings. We ask that you bless all those who protect us, our police and our fire, and all those in our military. We ask in thy name, give us the knowledge and the skills and the ability to make all those decisions this evening that are in the best interest of our community. We ask in thy name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we got the agenda before us.
I will move the agenda.
Hold on, sorry, roll call. We are missing, it's like
Mayor Pearson and Mayor Pro Tem Brickner.
I move that we excuse Mayor Pro Tem Buckner.
Okay,
Second.
second?
Sorry.
Any discussion?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, now, agenda.
I'll move the agenda as printed with the change of subtracting action item 11B number 4, and push that to a future date, and changing first read.
Number 12.
Sorry. And also removing number 12.
I hear a second?
Second.
Clarify, on number 12, can we defer that to February 5th?
Oh, sorry, deferring number 12.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, citizen comments. If there's any citizens here who'd like to comment, we have yellow sheets over on the table to fill out. We welcome your comments on anything. Just remember you're limited to 3 minutes, and we're here to listen. Does anybody? No? Okay, there'll be another opportunity at the end of the meeting if something comes up you'd like to talk about. Okay, that brings us to the local business spotlight. Lorraine and, I'm going to say this wrong, Naeem Tunka.
Yes.
Okay, from Lorraine Fine Jewelry.
She is the spokesperson.
Okay. Welcome.
Well, we've been residents of Liberty Lake for the past 3 years, and we felt really welcome in the community and love everything about it. The access to the Coeur d'Alene, Spokane area with the freeway. We love to be so close to I-90. So we decided to open a retail shop here. We saw that there was nothing like our business concept in the city. And we are like a boutique shop that we design and manufacture fine jewelry. And we do everything that a full service jewelry store we do, from watch batteries to repairs to custom design and sell finished jewelry. And we feel that we have a lot to offer to this community that is constantly evolving. We love that it's a very traditional city, but it's ready to welcome the new vibe, and we really love that about this city. And we were hesitating to open a retail shop because we were kind of semi-retired, but we are overwhelmed by the response of the residents. And we are working in a few projects with some of the people for charities and stuff like that. So we think we fit very well into the concept of this city that is in the growing, as we are also growing a different side of our business. And we just would like to partner with the city in anything the city is doing. We are ready to be sponsors and whatever it is that it will take us to meet more people. We love that about the city. Everybody is so welcoming and so friendly that we're definitely very happy that we got this opportunity to do business with you guys.
Well, we're glad to have you now. Remind me, you're in the across from Home Depot, across from the well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's exactly what we are.
Sure, everybody knows where you are, because
yes.
It can be a little difficult
It's
to find in there.
Country Vista right in the shopping center of the well, and we are Suite 600. And now we have signs, so you can find us. That was a little bit of a problem with the that we didn't understand. We have never done business in a small city before, and we kind of had a little bit of hard time knowing that we needed to ask for permits for the signs and this, and that kind of delayed our process of hanging our signs a little bit. But now it's all good, and we are ready.
Well, hopefully once you figure that out, the staff was helpful and
yes.
welcome you. It's nice to have a different business in the
yes.
city.
The nice thing about it is like all of you here in City Hall are very nice and easy to work with. So when I come very frustrated, it's always a friendly face. It's okay. We'll walk you through.
Glad to hear it.
So that's been great. Thank you very much. And we're looking forward to see all of you.
Sounds good. Okay, City Board and Commission reports. So we have planning commission report at all? Is anybody here? Phil?
Okay. Good evening. On behalf of the Planning Commission, Phil Follier and my Chief Gary. The Planning Commission met on January 9th. We welcomed new commissioners Joshua McKee and Anita Eiler. The commissioners voted on chair and co-chair at that meeting, the chair being myself, the co-chair being Charlie Matthews. The majority of our time was spent having a public hearing on the proposed amendments to the city street tree regulations. During the hearing, we had public testimony and reviewed written testimony that was constructive and well received by the commissioners. After the public testimony, discussion ensued to a point that it was obvious we needed to allow time for further debate. It was decided to continue the hearing to January 23rd at 4 p.m., which is tomorrow. The commissioners approved the yearly meeting schedule and the work program. We deferred the design review code workshop, I think you were talking about it earlier, to next month. Lisa provided information on the planning short course requirements and a useful resource guide. The commissioners agreed to identify a reporter of the month at each meeting. The intent of this action is to maintain and improve the cohesive efforts with the City Council. So I volunteered this month. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody here from Water and Sewer?
They had a conflict tonight.
Any other groups I'm missing? I don't see fire. Oh, Parks and Art. Okay, hi Tom.
Neighbors, thanks for turning out tonight. There were 3 of us last year this time. It's almost the same weather. Staff and council. I was designated to give a short report, and then I think I'm supposed to encourage some discussion that's going to be going on later too on the new policy for public art. Our meetings have been full. We finally went to once a month so that we could take a little bit of a break. But the things that we're discussing right now briefly are for your consideration and for your input, a location for the Storywalk project that we discussed, and that Pamela and Jocelyn have both been working with us on. We have secured funding. We've got really good design. Now it's a location. So would you please either attend a meeting, let us know what your desires are. It kind of looks right now like Rocky Hill might be the #1 location of concern. We don't know whether Orchard's going to be up and ready. I'm not sure whether it's the right place. Rocky Hill has been asking for something like this. We think that it would fit there really pretty well. The second thing is we've had, and Councilman Kennedy was the only one who was there to see it, but also staff was having a staff meeting early last week when John Vickery, a local resident, 40-plus year resident, and art collector, has offered to display some of his collection here and throughout the community. So we brought a piece. The one that we brought was the one that has been discussed the most around here, and that is the horse massacre. It has a historical significance and consideration. It was not, Mike saw it, it was not blood and gore, not something that we wouldn't want to have somewhere, but it does have a very interesting perspective. And when you take a look at it, as with all art, it kind of depends on how you come into it as to what you get out of it. So we brought that for people to take a look at. John has offered generously to consider some of what sounds like he has many, many pieces of art. This was a woodblock art thing, if you know what that is. It's a carving that you reverse the image. It was a black and white, but he has one that we have discussed, and I think I sent to most of you, and that is the Children of the River that's on display now at the Grand Coulee Visitor Center that has been seen by over 1 million people, and we are in discussion with Central Valley School District to possibly put that up when we open the new high school. Ben is very interested in that. So that's an opportunity that came our way. There's lots more. A call to artists. We didn't know exactly how that would go. Most of you have done that before. We had over 50 submissions from our first call, and that's within 2 weeks. And so it's still going for almost another month.
It closed January 19th.
Okay, so we had a large number of submissions, including one from Karen Mobley, who's been our kind of mentor from the City of Spokane Parks and Arts Commission. I'm also supposed to wave this in front of you, which you already spoke of before. I hope you've taken the time to look at this. We're going to move on this. We need to have you look at it and give us your input. This contains an awful lot of the direction and you will notice in here, all of which is in your control. We're advisory to you. We know that. So let's get moving on this, and when we hear what your suggestions are, it may not be perfect, but we need to get going on this because we have some projects that need to follow up if we can get this going. So any of your input, we'll be meeting again Wednesday. Next week. So please come if you want. We're going to try to have somebody from both the Planning Commission and Parks and Arts be here at every one of those council meetings. Okay? Any questions, Dan?
Tom, I just want to make an observation. I am so grateful for the work and energy of the Arts Commission, for example, in engaging local residents and people with exhibition, works of potential exhibition.
We learned that from you on the flag project.
This is exactly what I had kind of foreseen in considering how this Arts Commission could work throughout the arts community to bring art into our city. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Just got a quick
Yeah.
question, or maybe a piece of feedback to go back. Brand new commission. Everything right now is a conversation about
We had our
art.
first year birthday. Come on now.
That's okay. Practically brand new.
Yes.
It's on. Are there any discussions that are starting to happen around parks themselves? I hear the talk about the story walk installation is going to go. Sounds like a little bit more of a park piece, but have you guys been talking parks
Yes.
more, or is it really heavy on art?
No, we've been talking a lot about what we're going to be doing in the different parks. It's just how much time do you want to talk about. But your focus and what we're really talking about starting is art. We do have some other discussions too about the potential art project when the Harvard Bridge is put in, because there are monies set aside for that as well. And it's not going to be a surprise. We're going to work on it and present it to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
One quick question, are you at liberty to share where the funding came from for the story walk?
Yeah, well, part of it came from Friends of the Library, and that was the part that we wanted, and I don't want to use names, but there was a memorial for, it was very special, memorial that was set aside, and so they're going to be, which was really good because it's kind of Pamela's pet project. The Friends will be paying for the books, and we have to disassemble the books to get them all in the right place, and then we've got the kids from the tech center that are going to be putting the stands together.
Well, I didn't know if any of the manufacturers, the raw materials suppliers had stepped up for the donations.
Yeah, we will have an answer for that. We have people that are willing to sponsor, but whether or not we want it to come out of the funds that you, designated in the budget, and then present back to you or not, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right. Any other city council reports?
Well, I just want to make a reference to on Friday, several of us were able to attend the gala event that Spokane Valley Chamber of Commerce put on. It was really very well. One of the things they started doing a couple of years ago was recognizing local teachers from the different schools and stuff. There was 4 of them that were recognized, and they got up and spoke, and every one of them was outstanding. It was impressive, it was outstanding. It was a good evening, very enjoyable.
Well, what we
And the Citizen of the Year, and that may not be the exact title, was Jeff Gray, a local resident.
Right.
And then also Adorable Flowers was recognized as one of the better
entrepreneur
businesses.
Right.
And then the hub was, as we talked about earlier, nonprofit of the year.
It was well attended.
Katie, who is the citizen of the?
Jim Frank.
So,
Yes, sir.
do you have something to say?
Defer to you, Odin, please.
Thank you. The only thing I'd like to add to it is I got a letter today from the AWC president, Mr. Britton, who nominated me to sit on the 2019 Officer Nomination Committee for the AWC. So I'll be taking up that position right away. We'll be meeting, our first meeting will be in Olympia, and it'll be in February, early February. And we have 3 sessions that we have to go through, but the last one will be here in June or July in Spokane. So I look forward to working on that and appreciate the nomination.
Yeah, congratulations, and glad to have somebody from Liberty Lake representing.
Absolutely.
Right, congratulations.
Thank you.
Good deal.
I just throw the agenda did a great job of introducing the events of 2019 for the summer list, but mark your calendars, another one out there. March 2nd will be the Father-Daughter Dance. This is a Kiwanis event put on annually that has a attracts on the neighborhood of 300 to 400 couples, fathers and daughters. It's a great event for our community. It'll be hosted at the River Park Hotel. Also, March 9th, following Saturday, the Central Valley Bear Booster Club, that's our high school that all of our students attend, will be having a gala event at the Centennial Hotel downtown. So great events, put them on your calendar, plan to attend. It'll be a great way to support the community.
Great. Question?
Yes.
Dan, would you mind expand a little bit on what the funds that they raise, the father-daughter dance, what it goes to? So I think that's important that people realize that.
Sure. This funds the Kiwanis scholarships. This is returned directly to students in the community. We have an annual program of solicited applications in which students are invited throughout the Liberty Lake and Greater Valley area. Both high school and secondary, I'll call college-age students can apply, and we recognize them with contributions. I think last year we were able to award 2 $1,000 amount scholarships, and then various levels below at $500. So
thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, no other council reports. We'll move on to the city administrator report.
Thank you, council members. Katie Allen, City Administrator. So on my update, I wanted to put Harvard Road up at the top for a number of reasons. This is the widening of the northbound lane on Harvard Road, and also the westbound ramp, extending it for those of you that aren't familiar with the project. The good news is we are in the governor's budget. The mayor is in Olympia this week, and I did get a text from him. He met with 8 legislators today. Things went very well, and he has, I think, 6 meetings scheduled for Thursday. And I have to tell you that what's really making the difference, I think, for our community is your decision to invest in our lobbyists. I know there's a better word for them than lobbyists, but they're very knowledgeable. They're very they're able to navigate when and who and what to say to people, and I think it's paying off. We are also in Senator Hobbs's transportation package. So it's not done until probably the end of April, but we're optimistic, cautiously optimistic, that we'll get funds for the Harvard Road Bridge widening project.
And that's for the biennium budget they're working on right now. So that would be 20 and 21.
It's 19, 20. Let's see. No, it's 19 through 21, and then 22, 23.
Okay.
And Henry Road would be on the tails of this one. So some very, very important projects for our community, and we won't know till we know for sure. But right now we're pretty excited that we don't have to work to get into the governor's budget. We're already there, so that makes it nice. Salary Commission, I know there's a number of folks in the audience, 3 to be exact, that have submitted applications. What I wanted the council to know is that the mayor asked RJ and myself to conduct the interviews so there would be complete objectivity, and we put forward our recommendations, and those are for your consideration. I think all of you have their resumes in your packet. I have to tell you, I'm just so thankful and appreciative of people that bring an incredible work history to our community and are willing to donate their time in assisting us with this effort. Councilmember Kamenskis, did you want them to say a few words, or do you want to wait to the appointment, or neither?
If they're willing to stick around to the appointment,
okay.
that's probably the best.
Very good. I'm going to move on to MRSC ethics training. Councilmember Kamenskis, Kennedy, and Langford were able to join us here at City Council. We had a little workshop here on ethics training. You guys all got your credits for that. And we'll keep an eye on other webinars that you guys can participate in. Right now, I looked and I couldn't see anything that were up and coming right away.
I want to tell you, it was nice to be able to come here to City Hall and attend it as a group, okay, and to be able to discuss it as it's going on, etc.
Yeah, it was very
that was a lot better than sitting in the house watching. So thank you for hosting.
And I think that the recording might be available for a certain period of time. So if any of the other council members or anybody from any of the commissions are interested, I highly recommend spending the hour. I think it was exactly an hour, listening to that recording of that presentation.
So Lime meeting. So this, I wanted to put this on. Lime is a business that rents motorized scooters and bicycles. They had a pilot project in Spokane last year, and I guess it went very well. It's interesting how they operate their business. One of the things I always found fascinating was how does the thing that got rented end up back so someone else can rent it, and they have people called juicers. They go out at night, pick them up, and they go home and they plug them in.
That was fun.
And they get paid. It's a job. So if you want to grow up and be a juicer. That's what they do. So anyway, the reason why I'm bringing this up is they are interested in the Spokane area, and Spokane, the Valley, and Liberty Lake. I told them to work out all the legal details and business arrangements with Spokane and Spokane Valley. So once they've ironed out all those issues, then they can come and talk to us. Because, Sean, I wanted to make sure that the bigger cities could weigh in on some of the things that they, the way they operate. I'll just say that. It's $1 to unplug the thing, and then it's 30 cents a minute.
15 cents a minute on the scooter.
Oh, on the scooter.
And just what I want to recognize is this is an opportunity for the youth in the community to make some money. You get $5 a scooter to recharge it.
Per month?
No, per scooter per night.
Well,
So
you
have an app that shows you where the discharged scooters are.
Okay.
You run around, you throw them in the trunk, you charge them up. The next morning, you throw them out on the street where the app tells you to. You get $5 a scooter.
Oh.
Teenagers will love it. Come on.
I think they're saying that everyone has a GPS in them, so if somebody thinks they're stealing one,
they're not going to.
So anyway,
they start squealing too.
Yeah.
So all I wanted you to know, we talked to them. We didn't say yes or no, and hopefully they'll work out all the details and then bring us back something. I have a concern with some things, but I'm sure it's all workable.
Okay, I've thought about these sorts of concepts at different cities, and just to speak out in support of this, I think it's an awesome opportunity to connect all of our parks, or as our Parks and Arts Commission is moving forward, for people to potentially hop on a scooter and take a tour of art around our community, or just all sorts of possibilities. I think are just a really neat way of connecting the city. So I'm looking forward to when those legal details are worked out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how fast can you drive a scooter on a public street. I have no idea what this.
They go 17 miles an hour. They go
very
quick.
I know. Okay, so, and kind of on a negative note, I didn't put it on here, but we didn't make the funding threshold for the DASH. So I received that information from STA last week that we didn't make the funding threshold. So
we did or did not?
Did not.
Did not.
And so STA is wanting to talk to us, and I don't know at this point. We've set up a meeting, but I haven't had a chance to.
STA wants
to talk to us. So maybe there's a DASH concept that they have in mind. I don't know.
They do.
So the group of people that prioritizes all the projects, and so they looked at funding, and most of them are West Side. I think 95% of them are West Side projects. So we were competing against people that were wanting, tens of millions. We were asking for like 80,000. So. The general election this coming November of 2019, I just wanted the council and also the audience to know that the mayor's position is up for election, as are council positions 1, 3, 5, and 7. I don't know who goes with what number, but I believe Councilmember Moore, Councilmember Dunn, Councilmember Kaminskas, and Councilmember Brickner.
Yes.
I believe those are the three positions that are up for election. And then also in closing, I just want to mention the food truck workshop is February 5th, and the flood zone update that has come up a time or two. Lisa's in charge of that, and she's going to include it in the comp plan amendment process, which would begin in April.
Just real quick, back on the 2018 general election, I'd like to propose to the council that in an effort to uphold, I don't know if it's the fairness doctrine or what it's called, equal time during elections, I would like to ask the staff take over writing the mayor's corner, and we rename it for the rest of the year.
I think that Steve's the mayor.
He is, but he is up for re-election, and I would say this no matter who it was, including us who are up for re-election for council, in order to maintain equal time for any opponents, I think the staff should take over the mayor's corner for the rest of the year in this spot. Just a thought.
I also support that idea. I think that we can take steps now to remove all possibility that somebody thinks that they're getting special favoritism. I think we also have to take into consideration that several of us volunteered a lot of time in the booth during the farmers market. And we have to be conscientious.
Very careful about what we say.
Of what we're talking about there and everything. I think that is something the council needs to have a brief workshop in one of our meetings of the pros and cons and what we can or cannot do.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. It was my idea initially, I think, to have a mayor's corner. And the purpose of it was to communicate to the community what's going on in the city and put it in the splash so that people who can't make the meetings get some ideas to what projects we're working on and different things that are happening in the city. Sometimes it becomes more political than it does informative and objective. And I think an alternative is to get rid of it altogether until the election's over, until next year. That's an alternative too. Mike?
I've always liked the idea to have something in there, and I certainly like the idea of having department heads. Because I think our department heads are extremely qualified. I think that they're doing an excellent job, and I think it would give a benefit to them to be able to put some input into that.
Or even have the chair of each of the commissions take one. You know, have
Right.
the planning commission chair write one month, chair of the Parks and Arts Commission, chair of the library board. I think we need to spread it out a little bit in that time again to present, you know, a level playing field.
How can we accomplish that? Can we accomplish that through
Well, we don't have a policy or anything like that. I think just.
Can we do it through a resolution?
I mean, I guess, you know, I could make a motion and, or should we postpone it and put it on the agenda? Because it wasn't on an agenda to vote on tonight, so can we just put a short workshop on for the next meeting, discuss it, and.
I guess I just want to observe that the fact that the mayor is, well, in an election does not absolve him of his responsibilities to communicate with the community. I think that this is a mechanism that we've arranged for specifically for that capacity. It seems a little bit political to try and remove him from it.
And it's not a personal thing. It's I would say if any of the council members who are up for re-election will be writing it, I would say the same thing. I would say the same thing if it was myself, if I was in the same position. Just a matter of leveling the playing field for everybody.
I stand by the notion that it is the mayor's responsibility to communicate with the community. And this was something that we created for that purpose. I don't think that the fact that he's in an election somehow removes him from that role.
Dan, I'm in total agreement with you with the idea of why we had that there. But let's also realize that it's not to be used for personal items.
And it has been.
Yeah.
It sounds like we're casting on to what has been written, or somehow that's the mayor has performed in that role with some political references. That sounds like an opinion. Okay.
I would recommend that we wait to try to have 100% of the attendance of the mayor and also all the council members to discuss this further.
I'd also ask that we push it forward. I think it's a nice idea to bring up for discussion. I don't want to say it's a great idea because that makes it sound like I'm biased one way or the other, but
yeah.
I personally just need to go probably do a little more research.
Sure.
Before.
So can we put that on the agenda, next agenda, if there's room?
For February 5th? Okay, in the workshop or in the council meeting proper?
I think it should be in the regular agenda, yeah. Thank you. Okay, I guess that brings us to workshops. If you don't have anything else, Katie?
Nope.
Anybody have any questions about the city administrator report? Okay. On to workshop discussions. Sean, you're up. Review of city's municipal code related to a code of ethics.
It's working. Well, when Katie mentioned at the last meeting that I was going to put a presentation on, I was not sure what my presentation was going to be about. And then I learned that we were going to name a road that was a diagonal road, diagonal, and so I thought maybe we could have a presentation on that. But then I guess the decision was made to put it off, so I guess I won't digress anymore. Everyone hear me all right?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Okay, so I know some of you had an ethics presentation earlier, or last week I think it was, and so this is just kind of a quick synopsis, summary of some things with regard to Liberty Lakes code of ethics, as well as some question and answers that I put together with regard to things that are kind of do's and don'ts for the election season. It's certainly not an all-encompassing situation. You know, and the one thing to keep in mind is when you're dealing with code of ethics for municipal officers or public records requests or open public meetings and those situations, there's not a one-size-fits-all. It's really a case-by-case factual analysis on a situation that may arise to kind of determine what an answer may be. But at least you have some frameworks, some guidelines, some regulations to kind of look to in the event something does arise, and then analyze it in more detail based upon what the circumstances are. So we're going to start with the Liberty Lake Municipal Code, and I'm not going to go through and read all of these as we go through them, but you can certainly do that as they're up on the screen. But the Code of Ethics was something that was fairly recently passed by the council. It's been put forth in Title I, Chapter 10 of the Municipal Code. But I went through and I wanted to have what's in there with regard to the declaration of policy and the purpose. I always think it's important for when you're looking at these types of situations is trying to have an understanding of what's the policy behind it, or what was the purpose behind why you have it and what you're trying to achieve. And so I went through and just kind of highlighted a few areas within the policy and within the purpose to kind of show the emphasis of what you're trying to do on the policy with high moral and ethical standards, confidence for the conduct of free government that's for the benefit of the people. And then with regard to the purpose, to govern their own conduct and develop traditions and responsibility for public service, both currently and into the future. And then I have down there in the bottom, you see in the parentheses, those are the specific municipal code sections that references. And I certainly would, recommend that everyone go through and take a look at it. It's not a large section. It's not a very big section with regard to the code, and read through it just to kind of get a full understanding of everything that's in there. I've just kind of highlighted a few sections as we go through this. If anybody has any questions, feel free to stop me at any time. So these are just, there's probably 17 different things that are identified within the code that are prohibited underneath the Code of Ethics. And I just pulled out a few of the larger ones that would maybe be more common that you would see or would think that would be a part of a code. First one there with regard to someone is seeking service, information, or something of value in return for a favor to do something. That's certainly a prohibited item that council members, planning commission members, and the like. And keep in mind, this isn't just for council members. This also, the Code of Ethics applies to any commission, whether it's Parks and Arts, whether it's a planning commission, and as well as other committees that would be put together by the city. The second one goes kind of similarly with regard to any gifts or favors with regard to a person, firm, or corporation that might have dealings with the city. That is also prohibited. And then the last one there is engages in or accepts private employment or renders services for private industry. All kind of similar, but they have little distinctions between the three of them with regard to things that would not be allowed. And then these are two additional ones with regard to requests or permits for the use of city property for profit, for convenience, and the like, as well as influences on the selection or conduct of business. Again, they all have a similar nature just because the dealings that the city have with the public with regard to private industry, with regard to the citizens, and the things that may occur to try to prohibit that kind of conduct. And then one of the other things that's underneath there that we incorporated when we put it together was with regard to social media. And obviously social media is an ever-changing process. What may be one thing today may be completely different tomorrow. But this tries to at least give you some kind of understanding of what the city is trying to achieve with its officers and city council members and the like. And one of the things that's in there that I highlighted there on the second bullet point is the idea that they're strongly discouraged the use of private social media with regard to city business. Because the problem that you get into is that there may be not fully, all the information not be fully vested with regard to a question or what's going on in a project. And the idea being direct everything back to the city staff to answer questions, to address issues that might come up, rather than to try to have each individual person having one conversation and then another person adding on. And sometimes if you get in an email exchange, you may be having a public meeting by doing that. So the intent here with regard to the Code of Ethics is trying to use one format to inform the public and to have a consistent message so that you don't have different messages on a particular topic or a particular project or whatever it is that may be coming up when questions are come up. Because social media is in various sites, different tools, and you may have a tweet that's 140 characters and you can't get a full understanding of what's out there. And yet then you may have an email that has more. And a lot of times in social media you can't understand context. And you read something and your perception is reality and it's completely different than what you were intending it to be when you put forth that message. So from that standpoint, if questions arise or circumstances do come up, referencing it back to the city's website or referencing it back to city staff to try to address those issues. So this is just a little bit more with regard to the policies that kind of I was talking about directing it back. But at the bottom there, it talks about representatives and what that means, and those identifying whether it's the mayor, whether it's the city council, planning commission, other boards and commission members, library board, all those individuals that make up various boards and commissions within the community. This would apply to them. And then the next one is just what the definition of social media is. And this was basically at the time that we did it, but I certainly think that at some point in the future that will probably be revised, just because things change so often and so quickly. But at least from the standpoint of MySpace, and trust me, I'm by no means a social media person, but from the standpoint of things that are on there, it will change on a daily basis. So at least from the perspective of what's there, people have an understanding of what you're trying to achieve when you say social media and social media sites. Okay, so what happens if there's some violations of the social media, social media policy, or the Code of Ethics rather, of which the social media is one? The worst case scenario is the suspension or removal by the city council. Now I haven't gone through and put forth exactly the process they would go through. The short version is that it would actually work its way through the hearing examiner and then it would work its way back to the council for any final decision. But to the extent that there was a violation, what could possibly occur? And then you can see down below there's some additional ones relative to whether it's a letter of reprimand, whether it's suspension, whether it's removal, or some type of censure. Now I'm not, go ahead, Mike.
Sean, a question on the top of there. Any member of the city board or commission found guilty, violation may be suspended or removed from the office of action by city council. It's actually the mayor that appoints individuals to that. And we just confirmed that. Wouldn't that be the mayor has that authority?
No, so the way it's set up is to get on the commission or the board, correct. But if someone on that commission or board violates the Code of Ethics, there's a potential for suspension or removal. And like I said, I don't have everything up here as far as the process, but essentially there would be an investigation that would occur, and then it would work its way up through the hearing examiner. The hearing examiner would make a recommendation to the council with regard to a violation, and then the city council members would then make the final determination.
Obviously I misunderstood it, because my understanding was that the mayor appoints the individual, that the mayor has the authority, if they're not doing their job, there's conflict of interest, things of that sort there, to remove them from that.
Sure, I understand.
We don't have
this is just with regard to the Code of Ethics. Okay. So if there's a Code of Ethics violation relative to something that's happened on one of those commissions, okay, there's a process specifically for that. Okay. So if somebody was accepting a gift in return for a favor, and someone became aware of it, they lodged a complaint, there'd be an investigation, it'd work its way through the process, and to the extent that suspension or removal was an option, then it would come back to the council for decision.
Okay.
And then these are just some additional penalties that could occur, and this is with regard if somebody is having a relationship with a business and has a contract or something to that effect, that contract would be void or canceled, and there would be no further business with that particular business for a period of 2 years. So switching gears from the Code of Ethics, this is with regard to the campaigning. Any questions with regard to Code of Ethics at all? Okay. So with regard to the campaign, this is under statute RCW 4217A, and this is the statute that addresses campaign, elections, and things that can and cannot be done relative to the elections. And so this part here has to do with the use of public facilities and what either directly or indirectly cannot be used. And you can see down there at the bottom a number of things, whether it's equipment, whether it's staff time, whether it's vehicles and things like that. Those are all things that are considered part of facilities for the city that would not be able to be used by a current city council member, for example.
John, can I capitalize on something
Sure.
real quick? Only to Chris's comment earlier, this kind of leads me to think that if the mayor were writing something in a newspaper and it is during an election season, I'm reading publications of the office or agency, that sort of makes me think that he is, now I'm not suggesting the mayor's going to go use that for campaigning purposes, but that to me puts a pretty big gray area in there if you were to be writing a publication during his election.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think the issue is, you know, I think from the standpoint of that article and the compensation that the city is using for that article would probably fall under this category. But I agree with you; it's probably a gray area specifically as to what it is. But if it is anything, it would probably fall under this particular statute.
Yeah, I just pointed out.
And that doesn't mean that that you can't have it. That just means you're not able to campaign using that as a forum to do it.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Question, John? So, in the event something was considered to be questionable, who determines if it is? How would that work?
Right.
As to whether to do this or not?
The example is if something that's written by the mayor in the mayor's corner is considered, I don't know, promotional or election promotion stuff versus communication with the city. Who makes that decision?
Well, I think there's probably a couple avenues. One would be internally trying to make that decision. Whether that came to me or not might be one option. The other option would be the Public Disclosure Commission. Because the Public Disclosure Commission is in charge and regulates campaigns and the statutory scheme. So if someone were to have lodged a complaint with the Public Disclosure Commission, then they would be the ones that would also then regulate whether or not something was a violation.
So Sean, if I was going to run, if this was my time to run, and I wrote an article for the Splash, and it was on behalf of the city. Then it comes time for me to file, and then I go back to the same paper and purchase space for advertisement of my campaign. How does that sit?
If you're going back yourself and purchasing an article or space in the paper to campaign, you can certainly do that. I think the issue is with regard to, and if the mayor wanted to have his own separate spot and his campaign wanted to pay for that, he could do that too. I think the issue comes in with regard to, is the city paying for the mayor's corner publication, and then that becomes the question with regard to statute. But if you wanted to do it individually as a campaign, you absolutely can do that. Yeah. Okay, so there are some exceptions that apply to this, and in the past, the City Council has done this with regard to ballot propositions and resolutions that they would support, and that's what certain circumstances here that in this number one exception, where you'd express a collective decision to vote upon a proposal or motion or ordinance that supports or opposes a ballot proposition, and many of you have done that during the time that you've been on the council. And then Three other exceptions: a statement by an elected official in support of and opposition to a proposition. That was if you wanted to do it individually. You would not be able to do it with regard to at public facilities, but if you were to do it some other location, you could certainly do that. And that's what's talking about in number 2.
So that couldn't be done in a park or anything like that, because it's city owned.
Yeah, probably in a standpoint of public facility, yes, I would say that's probably accurate. And then the other 2 that are listed up there, if there's something that's in the normal and regular conduct of the office, or in violation of the other statute there, 4252.010, that's the state statutory scheme for ethics in public service. So it's kind of a catch-all phrase in the event that you didn't have something identified specifically, then you could reference back to 4252 and look in there, and if there was a violation of that, then that would apply, or if there's an exception to that particular circumstance. So here's just some, this gets back to with regard to the PDC being the one that regulates the statutory scheme and has the enforcement authority. So if it wasn't something handled internally, then if there was a complaint lodged, that would be the format in which to address and answer the question. So campaigning during open public meetings, and I think this is an important one, certainly from the perspective of having individuals that come up, and I think a lot of times it happens more so if citizens' comments were to come up and someone wanted to advocate for one candidate or not. That's something that's not it's not something that's allowed under 4717.555. The next one there with regard to, and we kind of talked about this, government facilities to support a candidate or a proposition, but that's the specific statute that prohibits that particular conduct from occurring. So the question then is kind of a fine line as you get here with regard to using, we talk about public facilities, but could candidates use a meeting room? And essentially the PDC is taking the position that if it's a neutral forum, so you're not advocating one way or the other. If someone just wants to come, say, next door and use the house and have office space to have a meeting, I don't think that's going to be an issue. It's going to be a neutral setting. They're just having a meeting. They're using the space to have it. But if there is some type of endorsement or support that's going on as a result of that, or if they're having a campaign rally, something to that effect, that's not going to be allowed. Chris?
Or if, say, the city would allow one side to use it and not give the same opportunity to the opposition.
Correct. And that's where the neutral forums aspect comes into place, is allowing everyone the opportunity to have the same use, albeit not in an advocating way one way or the other. Excuse me. The next one is, may an elected official independent of his or I was supposed to have her in there, or elected body support or oppose a candidate? The answer to that is yes. Again, but as long as there's not public facilities used. You can certainly do that in your individual capacity and expressing your own personal views for either a candidate or for a ballot proposition. Nothing precludes you from doing that if that's your choice and if you want to do that. I think, let's see here.
John, I would suspect as an example is that I'm running for political office and I put my sign on my golf cart that I can't, I'm volunteering at the park over here. I can't put that golf cart on city property with my sign on it. I can tell by the pause it's a gray area.
Yeah, it is a gray area. I don't know, because part of it too is with political signage and related to the right-of-way and the aspect of it. You have some political signage is just a different animal with regard to others, and so I'm not sure that would be something I would say yes to, just because I think that you have the right on your property, albeit a golf cart, to put your political signage on your golf cart. or in your front yard, or in your window of your car. You know, I mean, I don't think if you drove your vehicle into the parking lot and had your sign in the back of your window that you'd be precluded from doing that. So I don't think it would be different with a golf cart if you had it on the back of your golf cart, especially from the standpoint that golf carts are licensed through the police department and have to abide by the rules of the road. Now, I recognize they can drive up on the grass in that situation, but I don't think that would be something that would be prohibited.
But I would assume that it would not be advisable, it's a big gray area, to take the card with my signage on it and put it in next to the booth where I'm volunteering.
Well, yeah, that might be a little bit different. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I mean, again, this is a perfect example of a factual scenario. You can keep adding facts.
Splitting hairs, but the conversation came up several times this last year.
Sure. I mean, that's a perfect example from the standpoint of, okay, this is okay, well, what if I do this? Well, what if I do that? Then you keep adding factual circumstances to where you have to analyze every particular situation individually to make sure you understand what the circumstances are. So if an individual, you know, wants to do that, certainly you're able to do that. There's not a problem with that. Again, just as long as it doesn't involve public facilities or the use of public facilities. And these were some other things too that could be done if you wanted to serve on a campaign committee, doorbelling, personal contribution, whether that's volunteer, financial, what have you, letters or any other action that any other citizen would be able to do. You're not precluded from being able to do the same thing that they would be doing if they were participating in a campaign. And then, excuse me, one other thing, I've got just a handout here that is something that I pulled off of MRC, and I'm not going to go through that today, but it's called the Election Campaign and Getting into Office, and it just has it's a little bit older, but it still has some information I think that each of the council members can read through. And you might want to see to kind of take a look through. It kind of has a summary and talks about this a little bit more. And MRSC also has some more detail with regard to things that are kind of do's and don'ts. And so you can kind of read through those as well. And if you have any questions, then certainly let me know. But it would give you at least some more information on this issue. And if you have any questions, certainly tonight or in the future, then feel free to let me know. Otherwise, that's it. All right.
All right, that brings us to the workshop discussion on Parks and Arts policy. And if you want to start us off, and then we will just go around the table with questions and
kind of regroup a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I had a short PowerPoint prepared. I'll go ahead and put it up if it can help or spark conversation. That would be great. But I think what I'll do is just, if you want to start, go around the table and offer any feedback or opinions. Is that where we want to start?
Well, I didn't know if you just want to give a quick
Kind of an introduction of kind of the framework.
Okay, so the public art policy has come into fruition as a guideline for the Parks Commission, and it's on top of the existing ordinance 245A. The existing ordinance has some detail in it, but as I started researching other cities and what other cities have, some cities did have some ordinances with more detail, such as our old 163, Ordinance 163. As I started to try to put those together and combine them and meld them into one ordinance, I started finding out that there are true public art policies out there that are very, very specific and detailed and lengthy, but they are very good guidelines for Parks and Arts Commissions, particularly arts commissions. So with that, the other key document to this is the Municipal Art Plan, the 5-year strategic plan, which was stated I will amend that and get that updated. 2 other documents I handed out to you and that kind of go in conjunction with these 3 that I didn't put on the slides is the utility box sponsorship form and the call to artists form. They also provide some detail and information on how selections are made, who can make selections, how the call to artists process happens. So I thought that would be really informative for you to review, to see what kind of guidelines we are already working with and working under as far as choosing art, particularly for the utility wrap boxes.
Jen, if I could offer something very specific to the council that, and underscore something that Jen said, is that as she was working through this with the with the Parks and Arts Commission, what was important was we put the detail of how they work in the policy as opposed to the ordinance, that the ordinance be the creation of the commission, et cetera, but the day-to-day working be the policy and let the council approve that policy. I think the ordinance is a law, we all know that, and we had a very prescriptive law for many, many years, and the Public Arts Commission did not work well at that time for a variety of reasons. Having said that, we thought, and Jen, correct me if you don't agree, but we had discussed keeping our ordinance the same, but taking those parts of the ordinance 163 and putting them into a policy that is consistent with our other city policies that we already have in place.
And consistent with what many other cities are already doing.
Other cities are doing.
So it made the most sense. This was given out to council about a month ago, and then it's been back to the Parks and Arts Commission. They've reviewed it. We've gone back and forth. What you have today is a draft. I should have put draft across the top. This is by no means final, and it may or may not even be close. I'm thinking, we're going to have quite some back and forth on this. So I can't tell you enough how much I would appreciate feedback on this so that we can keep this moving back and forth, because really the way it's structured, if we can get this nailed down, this will guide them on their first purchases of art and call to artists and selections. So as of right now, we've had great opportunities of people sponsoring art and donating art to the city and haven't spent any money yet. But I would like to see this in place and approved by council and the Arts Commission prior to any formal purchases of art. So, yes?
Just a quick housekeeping note. I think we've talked about this before. When we're actively amending a document like this, if we could make sure we put either a date or a revision number on it.
Sure.
So I'll make sure we're looking at the same one. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'll just do dates so that we have the most updated. So this is basically what Katie was just addressing, policy versus ordinance. And another reason for this policy, the city has a lot of other policies we have to operate by, financial policies, ethics policy. This public art policy falls in line. As Katie said it, we like to keep things simple, but in some cases we really need the detail and we need the depth. And this is one case where this policy provides that to our Parks and Arts Commission.
What is the mechanism for amending or changing the policy?
Comes back to council.
Yeah, so we can share it in a Word document, or we can have conversation. I don't know, can they email me with comments?
So
of changes?
After it's passed.
After it's passed.
Oh, after it's passed.
Yes. So the policy is approved by council, and the policy would be amended by council.
Okay.
It's not on a set cycle like other things. We can do it pretty much whenever we need to.
I like to think that the Parks and Arts Commission could initiate an amendment or change to the policy, and perhaps those changes be approved by council.
That's how I would foresee it would happen. Yes, exactly like that.
Well, it's really not indicated in the policy itself how it's amended, how it can be amended or changed. So we might want to include something in the policy.
We have a policy about policies.
Yeah.
The council approves the policy.
It's a policy, it's a procedure.
Well, we've got we've got a financial policy. Where is it described how we do that? We've got all kinds of where is it described what that process is. I don't think it's that complicated.
Anybody else have any feedback or comments? You want to just...
Yeah, if we can just go around.
I'd like to start elsewhere.
Well, you want to start elsewhere? Okay, let's start down here if that's okay. I'm just going to go around the table. Do you have anything you want to
Yeah, the,
You have pass for now? Okay, Dan.
Okay. Jen, I want to reflect on the detail and the action say that you presented. This is very detailed, I'll call it procedurally, in its action, and to me presents a framework of decision making that I think puts us in a good position for success. I had kind of a conceptual question, I guess, to the other council members, and I want to add that to the go around the table thing. I'll voice my perspective related to art selection. I believe that it's the role of the Arts Commission, and I'm going to say the procedural actions defined in the policy, to actually, I'd say, arrive at a selected work of art. And when I say that, what I guess I'll look for is, I wouldn't, for example, sit in a council meeting and look at a piece which had been appointed and recommended by this Arts Commission and say, I think it's a little too wide. Or did you think maybe it needed a blue stripe? Or something like that, you know? It's like, I just want to voice that as an observation. I think the criteria for the selection of the art itself really lies in the hands of the commission members and the policy that we talked about. We've entrusted them and appointed them for that purpose. So, you know, my perception, and I think what's played out in the policy, is that this commission will come up with a recommended, say, selected piece, and it's the council's discretion to say yes or no. But I'll voice that's my perspective, and that I wouldn't ever put myself in that position to say, yeah, make it a little taller. Or did you think about that other thing? That's what I look for that commission to do. I'm looking for some opinions.
Well, I think in that regard, you know, Dan, in all due respect, I think that the commission is a recommending body, the same as the planning commission is a recommending body. That doesn't mean they're not a decision-making body. I think inherently, I think they're making decisions, and you know, but it's up to the elected officials in the community to make the final decisions on these matters, and that's the way it's established. If it was an independent elected body, then I would say fine, but they are appointed in the commission, and their function by statute is to make recommendations to the city council.
Oh, I agree. I guess to complement that observation, I'd recommend that, though, when that time, I'll call it, goes to approve, I'll call it approve or decline a selected work. I'm just curious, do you believe, Bob, that's your potential role then to say, if it were a little wider, I'd say yes, or if it had a blue stripe, I'd say yes, or something like that?
I don't think would be that critical.
Okay, that's all I'm looking for.
Yeah, from my perspective, I think the spirit or the intent of us working, of the council working with the Parks and Arts Commission is kind of like when Jimmy, when you presented the goats. Here's the concept. Here's what we think it's going to cost. What do you think? We're like, hey, looks good. That's all the involvement I expect. You know, I don't expect, like Dan said, you know, well, it needs to be a little bigger. I want it to fit the community. I want it to fit, you know, I don't want it to be, you know, I don't want the picture, sorry, somebody's baby, you know, on the box. But I think that what we've seen so far has been spot on. I would expect that to continue. But I would personally like just run it by us, let us know the high level, because you're doing that work anyway, and I would expect, you know, the commission to do what you're there to do and throw out stuff that doesn't meet the criteria that's already in here with regards to the selection, and just give us the chance to give just an overall, hey, looks great.
So if I may add to that, I love that point, because what I need from you is, I'm the middleman, I'm the messenger between the commission and the council most times, and so what I've tried to do since day one is, hey, this is what they're working on, and as they started to accrue some projects and project ideas, I've shared those in the workshop, workshops generally at 6. And if at that time that I'm sharing an idea, for example, the GOAT project a couple of meetings ago, if at that time there are questions, concerns, you want to provide feedback, that is a great time to stop me and say, well, wait, we need more information, or we love the idea, or we hate the idea, or we're concerned about this, because then I can stop where I'm at, take it back to the commission, get further detail, rework it, whatever it is we need to do as the commission, and then bring it back. So it's a back and forth that has to happen, but I need that feedback from the council.
Well, and you even show when we were talking about the goats, you even made a comment, well, you asked them to make a change to the horns so they weren't so pointy and dangerous. That's what we look to you guys for. We're not, unless we, personally, if something really jumps out and say, hey, we're doing a unicorn and that 3-foot spike coming out of the unicorn's head could be pretty dangerous.
Right.
But I wouldn't expect that to make it as
right.
I'd just like to make one comment. I think that the ultimate art critic is going to be the citizens and the public. And if they don't like something, they're not going to go to Jen, and they're not going to go to the Arts Commission. They're going to come here to City Council and say, why did you guys pick doing that thing? Because we ultimately have make that decision. So, whether it's good or bad or indifferent, that's where the people are going to come. And because we're responsible, to the citizens.
Mike?
I'd like to make a point, using the goat, for example, in reference to what Dan was saying. I got several questions here in regards to the policy thing, but when I look at the art aspect is this, is that we set a budget that you guys can work within, that they can work within. And I'm going to use a goat, for example, because you're advisory to us, and Tom stood up there and said exactly that. You're advisory to us, and we have to make the decision. And I envision this, that you come forward with the goat and say, okay, here's what we would like to move forward on. And it's going to be X number of dollars, and this is how it's going to proceed. I look at my role as look at your recommendation and go, you got it. Go forth and make it. I don't want to get into how many legs it has, or make a comment about the horn, things of the sort here. But I don't think that that's now my responsibility to get into, start critiquing that. That's what I want them to do. They're the ones that put the time and effort into it. But for me, it's the advisory aspect of it. And we go to the 245, I mean, it leads into a lot of things that I'll make a comment on after the comments.
I think you had a
So
comment.
I had a couple of things. I think this is exactly what everybody's saying here about, I guess I'm going to call it sort of that project selection process. And I think I personally would love to see just a little bit more clarity in that. Like, so, for instance, it goes from the 5-year strategic plan, and annually you're going to start working on different budgets. We're going to go through and approve the 5-year plan annually. So you come back and you're starting design process. I think it'd be nice to put some sort of like checkpoints into the policy with the council. And my main concern there is that all the communication's been happening just excellent so far. But let's fast forward 10 years and let's assume Jen's not in her position and there's a totally new Parks and Rec Commission, a totally new council that doesn't talk to each other as well, and all of a sudden I could see some people being at ends if you guys went through the proposal process and all that, came back and the council said, nope, we're not going to fund it because we think it's going to be ugly.
So more of a formal version of what I just reiterated with my connection to council and how I would approach
Or
with
just
projects.
document it a little bit more clearer.
Okay.
Again, I think the spirit, I think we're all in agreement with the spirit is, but he makes a good point, if we all, when we're all not here, what's going to happen in the future, we need to think about future councils as well, and future commissions.
Just some sort of check-in type process.
Kind of formalize, how do you get to yes, kind of formalize that.
And how do you communicate that to the other bodies, right?
And I don't know if we say, I'm just spitballing, I don't know, we'd say, we're going to need 3 check-ins. I don't know what that looks like. You can figure out.
Well, what maybe, at the very beginning of a project that the commission feels certain they want to move forward on, maybe at the very beginning and keep checking in on a periodic.
Yeah, it could be council, we put in here that we're going to do statues at Orchard Park. It's budgeted, it's in the 5-year plan, it's actually in the plan for this year, and we're going to start working on it. Okay, cool. Thanks for that. Hey, we started working on, these are the ideas we're coming up with, this is kind of the direction we're going.
Okay.
Cool. Then at least we're on the same page versus, whoa, I would have never funded that. I'd hate to get to a lot of work, and especially a volunteer commission that I can see that leading to a lot of
Right.
frustration of, okay, thanks for all your work, we're not gonna fund it.
Yeah, we want to know at the beginning with the ideas and pictures and detail from you. We know we want to have support.
Just a little bit more.
Yeah.
I had another, that was really my only, I love this document, I love all the detail, especially selection criteria. I've got another question that, I don't know if I should save it for later.
Owen's been pretty quiet, no mind me,
Okay.
we're not gonna wanna be.
No, I just got some comments about some of the paperwork. but
Why don't
nothing
you go
about-
ahead and finish, then we'll jump back around, give everybody to see people find yours.
My question, and I just brought this up the other day, so I may not have an answer yet, was about, it popped into my head because it's related to the gentleman who's gonna allow his artwork to be displayed around the city and the potential liability to the city.
I sent an email to Clear Risk, and I meant to print that and bring it, and I can't remember exactly what it said, but he responded, so I can get you that information.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that needs to be, I don't know, that may end up reflecting on
Yeah,
some change.
and probably that would be a wise part to put in there. And also what I would do is I would put it in there and then have Clear Risk review the legalities of it, have Sean review it. I mean, they'll be the final say on the legalities and liabilities for sure. So
That's all I have now.
With regards to this piece of paper, it says, please select the sponsorship category. Okay. A couple concerns. One, it says, please submit a check payable to the Liberty Lake Parks and Arts Commission with this form. I can pretty much guarantee that that's a no-go. Make it out to the city of Liberty Lake, yes.
Because we're funding from the general fund.
But not to a separate Parks and Arts Commission who doesn't have the authority to collect the funds. On there, on the bottom part, it says, please note, and it talks about the sponsorship category amounts, and then it says, any money that's left over after covering artist fees and materials will be put into so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. Again, has to go back to the city. The fund is operated by the city.
If I could clarify something, is that all right? Councilmember Langford? So, Jen, remind me when STCU made a donation of the wraps on those boxes, and there was a question of, the bill came in to people on your Arts Commission, and it was better for STCU to pay them directly so that they weren't giving us the money. There was an accounting issue if STC would have given the city the money and then the city paid the people that did had the expense for the wrap. There was a financial issue. So we asked STCU to pay directly to the vendor that supplied the wraps.
correct.
So is that what this is about, or am I off base?
That's not how it's reading.
I would say that one that's not a similar situation.
That's not a
This is,
similar
we're talking
situation.
about a sponsorship that is
Just cash.
just cash or something in the city, or they want to put it towards this project.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt. but
So how do we account
So
for that?
it was better that STCU paid the vendor that made the wraps directly, rather than having us receive the money and then pay. There was a problem with that. And so
Since
we had,
STCU was very willing to be a sponsorship on that, and as we discussed about the particulars, it just made sense in that one particular project for us to even step in. So procedural-wise, we can work through different items, but there wasn't any issues with that.
It was
The opportunity was there. They were willing to step in and sponsorship. We acknowledge that we're going to take over the maintenance, or if we have to clean it up or something like that, going forward with that initial.
So how to Owen's point, first of all, I agree, I think it should be made out to the city of Liberty Lake. And remind me, I think we kept the fund, but not the sourcing of the fund for the Arts Services? Or did we get rid of the fund for the budget? I can't remember.
So no, the fund is still there.
Okay.
Okay, so if, you have to get the specific example, but if there is a project and it is within the capital item, and someone says, I want to donate, and the funds I'm giving to this is to go specifically to the goat. And if we're going to say if there's anything left over, it's to stay into that capital fund, then it stays in that capital fund. It does not go back in the general.
But the check would still be made out to the city.
Check is still, yeah, check probably still.
And any leftover funds is also back to the city.
Never leaves the capital fund. It'll stay in that
Stays
arts
with the
capital fund if they designate it. So,
If they designate,
Yeah.
what about if they don't designate?
then it's, yeah, it's whether it only goes, well, so it doesn't leave the city of Liberty, like it still stays in our checking account, but it's in a specific special fund for a special purpose.
We can split it if we want to, but my intent is that we keep a very clear line of income and outgoing monies.
Correct.
And that it go to the central funding agency, which would be the city.
Correct. We're saying the same.
And I know that you'll do all your magic to it.
It's not
Okay.
Do we have a specific agreement with SDCU?
in that particular arrangement, no.
There's no formal agreement. Should we have formal agreements with the...
We should, yes.
I think we'll see that coming up.
And that's part of the policy procedure that we're working through.
Yes.
To identify these things.
So Jen, my second comment regarding call to artists.
Yes.
is we're looking at the heading called proposal, and we're looking at, or I'm looking at the second paragraph. I understand the meaning of the paragraph. Utility boxes will be enhanced using selected artist design, which will be printed on vinyl and wrapped around the boxes. Perfect, got it. The design shall integrate all sides of a box to create an engaging visual, and now we're getting into an area that I would like to explore. What we're saying is that it's the city's intent through the Parks and Art Commission to create an engaging visual to capture the attention of cyclists, motorists, and pedestrians. Okay? I would like to hear from our attorney about, are we putting ourselves in the way of creating a safety problem by just stating that?
We might want to change that to the community.
You know?
Yeah.
Whatever, okay?
Yeah.
I'll leave it in your hands to take care of.
Okay.
And that's the only two on the forms other than your policy, but I'll get back to it if you have another.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Leanne, here again, anything?
No.
You? Anything additional? Mike?
I got several. Excuse me. Get through coffee here. As I mentioned before, process is everything. We're really trying to look at what are responsibilities when it comes to council, the legislative side of the house, the administrative side of the house, and how we work together. Because as long as that works together, we seem to have less challenges. It seems when we step on each other's toes, we get into challenges. The document, to me, I appreciate the time and effort that you guys have put in. I've been to quite a few of your meetings, and I see all the discussions that go on. We've got individuals who are really excited about art, and that motivates me because they get excited about this. I think that's great. It's excellent. The policy, though, I have many concerns. Is that, and I'll revert back to Tom, made a very good point that comes up, and he said the council is advisory. They're advisory to us. That is the key issue for me on everything as we move forward with art. It is advisory on everything. We budgeted. I mentioned about the GOAT. If they want to do the GOAT, I feel they need to come forward to the council and say, we're going to do this GOAT. It's X number of dollars. I'll the 35 or 37,000. We'd like your blessing. We want to move forward. We look at it and say, you got our blessing, and we stay out of it from that point on. Make some changes and stuff they can bring back to us. Let them run with that. I don't want to get into what Dan was saying as well. You know, is that a male bill or female bill? I don't care. And get into that. The challenge that comes into this is that when it comes down to the authorization that they have, if Parks and Art is advisory to the council, they should not be able to make the decision on what they're buying and not buying. And also, this is written in here, that they have the authority to liquidate the art any way they so desire. We already have rules and regulations and policy with the city on how assets of the city is liquidated. So in reality, everything that is in here when it comes to liquidation of art, I believe could be eliminated. Now, when we started off, excuse me, back in December 4th, when it came up about 245A, the discussion came about was that 163 was eliminated, and 163 could be incorporated into 245A. And in one of our meetings, you were tasked with, you were going to take 163 and incorporate it within 245. And I got a copy of it on December 4th, and it was not discussed at the next meeting. It was going to be. And for whatever reason, I didn't get too concerned about that. I think what you said a little bit ago was that you kind of put that off to the side and, excuse me, tried to incorporate this. Thus, better understanding. Now, on December 18th, we received this one, and then it was brought forward for us to approve it, what have you. The idea was that there were some things that needed to be changed, or redundancy was changed. And then we got this one on December 18th, last Friday. And then today, we received this one. Now, there's changes in each one of those, and it gets confusing. And I was very outspoken and hoping that all the council members would take the time and effort and read this and understand it before we move forward. For example, I can easily go to, these pages were not numbered, but number 3, municipal art collection. Halfway through is if the council, if you're advisory to the council, and we have to approve everything, then why do we have in here, with this public art policy, which you're asking us to approve, the city declares, that's the council, that there is one municipal art collection, and there is one authority, the Parks and Art Commission, PAC, for the acquisition, maintenance, and municipal art collection. City departments are advised to follow the procedures outlined in this policy for art review. That's a diabolical statement that the council has the approval.
If I observe, I think, Mike, the intent there is saying if a future mayor wanted to go out and acquire some art, no, you can't do that. That's the role of this commission. So there's only one way, that we're recognizing that art happens in the city. It's through this commission. That's my interpretation of that statement.
Well, it specifically says acquisition. Acquisition, however you look at it, is purchasing art. That decision is council.
That acquisition, we know, only comes in the form of a voucher that this group gets to approve or reject. So I guess as a transitive gesture, you're always at the end of it, Mike, saying yes or no.
Oh, but I agree with that. It has to specify that. Yeah. I am not in favor. We have verbiage in here that says that they have the final decision. Also,
it kind of infers that maybe a future mayor can make a decision about that. That's
well, we already have that now with 168, and I could jump to that now to give an example how they've incorporated that and systematically removed council's authority.
168, I'm sorry, can I follow?
168 is for donations for parks, cities, and recreation programs. And they have referred to it, RJ has referred to it in meetings at the podium here, where it states in there that the mayor, when there are donations for items come in, of up to $10,000, the mayor makes a decision, or his employee makes a decision. Okay. Over $10,000, then the council makes that decision. But then there's C, and C specifies, the city shall maintain the final authority to accept or deny any gift or donation. What is the city?
The city, in that regard, Mike, is the city. So it's the decision, and the reason why that section is in there is to give the city flexibility to say yes or no.
And who is the city? Who makes that decision?
So, well, I would say probably the council would make the decision at that point, but I think that is, you're getting to the point of saying, okay, there's a certain threshold for the mayor to make, and then anything more than that the council makes, and then to the extent of a dollar figure. And then after that, it's just a question of, regardless of what the dollar figure is, we reserve the right as the city to say yes or no on what that donation is. And it's not, in the ordinance there is not specific
art. That's just a financial dollar figure amount relative to any donation.
Well, I'm glad you brought up it's not with art, because see, art is not mentioned anywhere in here, of which we need to go back and add that in there. It specifically says the city shall maintain, and city to me is council. The city shall maintain the final authority. Now my concern there is this, is that in council there's 7 of us. It takes 4 to spend any money or ordinances or policy or anything like that. Because the idea is the majority rules. It doesn't make sense to me that we have given power to one individual, in this case, the mayor's office, to make the decision, or he can appoint that decision to somebody else. I don't have that authority as a council. This council doesn't have that authority. So what we're saying is up to $10,000, according to 168, and they incorporated that in here, is that the mayor or his appointee, that in itself worries me more than anything else. Because we've taken this huge conglomerate of how we run the city, and in 168, given it to one individual. When that individual,
Yeah, I'm just trying to follow the train of thought for everybody, because I may be on a different wavelength, I'm not sure. The way I look at 168, and I don't have it right in front of me, you may, but 168 basically says, if we receive a donation in excess of $10,000, it requires council approval. If it's less than $10,000, the mayor and or his designee, his or her designee can accept it.
right?
The city, whether it's the city staff, the city council, or the mayor, any of those could say, no, we are not going to accept that donation, whether it's art or not. So the city can reject all donations regardless of the dollar.
Who makes that decision for the city? That is city council.
So what I would say, Mike, is that if we received a donation of a junk car, and you as a council did not think that we should accept it, you could pass an ordinance and say, I think we should reject the donation of a junk car.
We don't have to pass an ordinance, it's already in here.
Excuse me, you would take council action to reject the donation.
Right.
Regardless of the dollar amount.
Right.
Okay.
So we have the right of first refusal if it's under 10,000. Say Steve or...
I don't care the dollar amount. The city can reject the donation. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, the third provision that you're citing in 168 is meant as a catch-all phrase or a provision, regardless of what the dollar amount is or what the item is. The city has the ability to say, I want to give you my junk car. Man, we don't want your junk car.
Right.
Take it to the wrecking yard or whatever situations. I want to give you a goat. We don't want your goat. I mean, the city has the ability to say that. And then the first 2 items are just with regard to having a threshold for a dollar amount. And as long as I've been here, there hasn't been a run to the door to give donations between $5,000 and $10,000. So I'm not sure, practically speaking, that there's
so we do every year have a dozen Cub Scout, Boy Scout, Eagle Scout projects, and people want to come in and they want to donate a bench, a picnic table, a flagpole,
a tree,
and we accept those. They never come to council. They're, I don't know, the value is probably $1,000 or less, I'm guessing, and we accept those. And if you came to me and said, no, I don't want to accept those, then I'd ask you to bring it to the full council so the full council could make the decision not to accept that.
I really appreciate you interjecting and you interjecting. Because if you think about that, you see the confusion that we have here? If we're not sure and there's questions about this, before we move forward, we have to know exactly how we're moving forward.
Well, maybe we need to take 168 as a separate topic, because it's not even referred to by number in here, except for by...
Yes, it is.
Oh, is it? Okay,
Yeah.
I must have missed that. But I think 168 has to be a
what's
separate...
interesting is 1218, the meeting that we were given this one, we asked for changes. It did say in there, it had C, which says the city shall maintain the final authority. Now on Friday, when this one arrived, that has been eliminated.
So I just responded to the one that we latest received from staff. That's the one that we took.
I understood.
Would it be helpful to put, because there's a list of definitions at the end, to add this city as a definition? Is it not in there?
What would be helpful is this, is that if that organization, same as planning, is advisory to the council, then everything is brought to the council for the council's approval and blessing, and then you move forward. That's how we operate. To suddenly have verbiage in here that the PAC even has a subcommittee that they appoint
that goes out and makes these decisions takes away the fact that the council is in the position to make these decisions. That's factual.
I interpret the package instrument to be part of the procedural action of the actual selection of the art. There is in no measure something here that says they can proceed to acquire, spend money, take other actions. It's simply for the identity of the item. That item will come to this group then in the form of a voucher for an expense.
They've already said that they make payments to artists who submit things, and they don't call it a payment. What is it that they call it? What is it that they call it?
Stipend.
A stipend or something? So none of those stipends have come up to us. I think there's, the selected artists will receive a stipend of $350 for the digital work.
Just for me to recognize RJ, I think that the
Well,
stipend would be payment about more.
Thank you. So there are payments being made, but one thing I would like to make this body aware of is that with regard to the city council's, the city attorney's objectivity of not everybody running to give us things over 5,000, we can look out there in the hallway, and once we get to art, we're going to start seeing more things than we have seen. That person valued that piece at $25,000. Now, that's his valuation. Okay, it's not necessarily ours. But the fact remains that it's a $25,000 donation. Okay? So I think we're going to see more, right, wrong, or indifferent, valued donations coming to us. And I do think it's important that we get this hashed out. And also at almost a 8:45, I would like to make a motion, if it doesn't interfere with you too bad, then Mike, that we move this to a separate workshop and bang out these policy matters in a way that we can do it before 10 o'clock at night and get back on our regular schedule, if you agree, sir.
I agree wholeheartedly. That was the whole point that I wanted to make. There's enough statements in here that are predictive to an advisory. And there are repeated times where it says the PAC has 100% control over what they buy. And they have 100% control on how they liquidate art. And art in this town is an asset of the city. And we already have rules and regulations and policy how we liquidate assets. So
if I may interject one thing, and admittedly I haven't read through the policy, but one thing to keep in mind for consideration is a distinction between the advisory aspect that Mike's talking about, but then also the aspect with regard to the commission and the artist. And if the artist is making a donation or is having something that's given to the city or through the commission, that the commission is saying we have control over it. If we end up getting it and have it, we have the rights, we have the control of it, we're doing with it as we wish once we receive it. So again, admittedly I haven't read through all of it, but to the extent of having that distinction to make sure that the policy is addressing an issue of a donation is made and later on the artist says I want it back. That scenario, to keep that in mind relative to it.
I appreciate your comments, I really do, and I certainly appreciate the idea. That was my goal, to get to where if there's this many questions in here, we need to have a separate workshop strictly for this. We can't do that type of stuff in this type of a format, this type of meeting. There's just too much there.
Well, I guess I'd like to suggest, and Odin, thank you, I was looking at the clock as well. If everybody can submit their questions, concerns, I guess to you, Jen, maybe, I don't know if we want to set up a separate meeting or just continue, add another workshop session to the next meeting to go over what those comments were, maybe some replies. I would also, in addition to my housekeeping question about keeping the date rep, since it sounds like we're going to have a lot of comments and maybe several changes, if you can put the track changes on.
Yeah, how would you like me to compile it and bring it back?
We kind of like the NBQs. I think so. A lot of questions.
I have a challenge with the NBQs, and there's a simple reason why. If we had had 2 workshops for the budget, there would have been 2 or 3 MVQs. The workshops generated more conversation to where the council heard individuals talk than I've ever seen, and I've sat on that office for 5 to 6 years. Okay? It was more productive than I have ever seen. Now, if we want to submit questions, I think that is great. But I think to be able to sit down like we did with the budget even and go page to page. Because the challenge is, just think about that. I brought up some of these concerns. I got 1, 2, 3 jumping in going, oh, but you don't understand, you don't understand. And you made a comment, and I appreciate that, is that you had the liberty to read it. I've taken the liberty to read it. This has come out a month ago, and I've encouraged council to read it and have questions about that. We have an organization that wants to go out there and create good things for the city. And I'm a little annoyed that it's taken us this long to get to this point. I think we're handicapped in these individuals, that if we don't move ahead at a pace that we can allow them to work, it's going to hurt us in the long run. Thank you.
So I guess I kind of like everybody's thoughts on maybe a separate hour-and-a-half workshop.
I'd appreciate it.
Yeah.
Sure.
So is there anything specific you'd like me to have prepared for that? Do you want me to leave the document as is at this time? Would you like the Parks and Arts Commission to re-review it on Wednesday?
If possible, my suggestion, Madam Chair, would be that we go ahead and send you some questions if we have any specific ones that you can be on top of for that meeting, and then at that point we can pick back up what we left.
Perfect.
So if you could today is Tuesday, and I'm kind of a deadline type person, so say 1 week from tonight, if you guys could get questions and comments to Jen.
Okay.
And then we could take those questions and comments and work with the document, and then you can work with the commission and can bring it back.
Okay.
Because it sounds like it is a very complex document. I know Jen has done an incredible amount of research with the city of Coeur d'Alene and cities that have this. I don't know that there's a lot of confusion or not, because if people have read it and some people haven't, I think it's a good piece of work. Obviously, there's areas that we need to address and make better. So that's why we want your feedback and your suggestions. So my suggestion is let us do as much work as we can at a staff level and bring you back something that's closer to what can address your questions and concerns.
And then wait to schedule a separate workshop until we have that?
Correct. I don't want to schedule a workshop until we have it. And then if you could get your comments to us a week from today, questions and concerns, that would be great.
I don't any reason we can't schedule a meeting, if you already have scheduled when you're going to get the comments.
So my challenge is I haven't looked at February 5th, and I don't. That's a council meeting night. So I'm doing this in my mind. That's a busy council meeting, I recall. So this 7 and 5 is 12. So February 12th would be a Tuesday. It's an off Tuesday.
I won't be able to make that night.
Okay, then the 19th is a council meeting.
I would like to recommend that we look February 5th. If necessary, if we're strapped for time, let's move something off of there. I don't want to keep postponing this and have these people go to their next meeting and go, I have no idea what the heck the council is doing.
Is there another day during the week besides Tuesday that we can look at? Why don't we do this?
February 7th is a Thursday.
Why don't we do this? When we submit our questions and comments, why doesn't everybody throw out some free dates between now and mid-February and see kind of what works for those people? Does that work for everybody?
To throw those dates out to Jen?
Yeah.
Okay.
If that works for you.
Yeah.
Jen, is there any particular authority or approval or anything that the commission needs from us in the meantime?
In the short term, no. We are working on the GOAT projects. Things are kind of at a stall right now because of the winter. And if there is something, I will work with them on Wednesday if they want me to bring anything to you. So we'll communicate that way in the short term. Does that work?
That sounds great.
You know, I'd love to see if they want to move ahead with the GOAT, they already know the budget things of the sort here. Bring that forward for the council to vote on and say, yes, run with this. And also the storybook.
Yeah.
That's a great presentation. The kids are going to do a great job. That you know what the budget's going to be. Bring that to the council this next meeting, And so we can vote on it, so you have our blessing to run with it. So then those are not in limbo. And hold that.
So the one thing with the goats, not to interrupt you,
I'll just use that for example.
one thing with the goat statutes is in their 5-year work plan, it's not scheduled until 2020, so I would need to amend that. The commission would need to amend that, and I would need to bring that work plan for next year back to you for approval in order to do that for 2019.
Okay, so comments and things to Jen by Tuesday next week.
I'll use that for example.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks Jen, thanks everybody. All right, next workshop, discussion, discuss salary commission ordinance amendments. So I know what the amendments on there.
Actually, I'm looking for your feedback. So the ordinance is up there. The only change that staff was bringing back was to change it from to meet when necessary to at least once annually to review this.
So the request is to add.
Change it from as necessary to at least once a year. Yeah. But I know there was discussion.
I think Mike had a concern and wanted to bring up.
Well, not a concern. Because I'm on a roll, allow me to say. My recommendation would be make some additional changes. The way it's written now is that the quorum is 3. And looking in the past, I looked at an article that was written in the Splash, that one of the times they got together, they were never able to make a decision because they didn't have a quorum. One of the individuals decided he wasn't going to be able to attend the meeting. The way it's set up now is, I believe, hinders that. It's set up, the majority has to be 3. It's set up where all 3 individuals have to agree. The challenge with that is any organization, including this council, we work on the majority. Now, Spokane Valley, they had 5 individuals on there, and they work on the majority. If it's on the majority, and I don't care if you have 3, 5, 10, or 15 individuals there, the majority rules with the recommendation. The challenge when we have, let's say, 3, and all 3 have to agree, the majority, the control is given to one individual more than the other 2. Because somebody can sit there and say, I don't care. Makes no difference. The only place I see that works in legal is if it's a trial, jury trial, or something like that, where everybody has to agree. I think what it does is it hinders all the work that go in. Staff should be putting a lot of time and effort of comparing cities and things of the sort here. And if we give it to a group that cannot meet on a regular basis, or one of them can't attend, it becomes null and void. So I recommend that we change that, the majority rules. If you want to leave it at 3, that's fine, or 5, I don't care.
RJ, correct me if I'm wrong, any changes we make to this ordinance wouldn't be in effect until the next year, is that correct?
So just changes the ordinance would be effect after 5 days after passing.
Okay, because I know Katie and I met to go over the agenda today, and maybe I misunderstood.
There's a provision in the ordinance that talks about if an increase is awarded by the commission, then the way the ordinance is written, it would go into effect the first day.
Right, that I knew, but I thought, sorry, I must have misunderstood our conversation. I thought you were saying that if we could change it to majority, it wouldn't be effective till next year. But I
Well, you can change the ordinance.
We can change it now.
You could change the ordinance, and that it could be, and the planning, or excuse me, the salary commission is on your agenda for approval tonight. If you were to change the ordinance, then if they make a recommendation, then it would require 2 of the 3 people to support the recommendation, and you could do that midterm.
Okay.
It would just be an
I
effect.
just misunderstood our conversation.
I thought, well, so there's kind of what we're recommending is that the ordinance be changed to have a minimum meeting period of once a year, annually. That then coincides with pay adjustments for the city staff. And so once a year, right now I believe the ordinance says as needed.
Yeah.
And so as all of you know, it's gone on for 5 years and
Correct.
hasn't had any changes. So for purposes of tonight, this is a first read, correct?
Correct, tonight's the first read.
So they can, how do you make adjustments to the first read? Could they wait till after the public hearing and then make an amendment and change the ordinance?
We can make changes after the first read.
Can you repeat that?
We can make changes after the first read.
And what would be the changes?
So the changes would be 2.
There wasn't anything specifically, just whether you could do it or not.
So one change would be, our recommendation is an annual meeting, and the second recommendation, based on the conversation that I'm hearing from you, is that you want to change to a majority of the salary commission can can make the decision to adjust the compensation to mayor and council. I do want to underscore what's different than this commission than all the others commission is it is not advisory, it's binding. So when they bring back a recommendation, it's totally 100% binding.
Right.
But the ordinance that we have the first read on tonight that already includes that annual.
Correct.
Yeah, so we wouldn't have to make a change to that, and that's already included. That's what we're reading tonight. But then if somebody wants to move to add an additional change, then that can take place.
RCW and AWC, of course, RJ and I had a discussion on this. RWC is tries to look at RCW. Yeah, tries to look at RCW. And because we appoint a commission, that whatever is approved, other than reduction, can go into effect immediately.
Well, there's
after
two
30 days.
There's a referendum period of 30 days, but you would have to change the ordinance the way it's written right now, because the ordinance dictates otherwise.
Right. And that's my recommendation, that that ordinance is changed. So there's really two there. The other things I had were just recommendation for staff when you start going out to talk to cities. Can I throw that out now? Or I'd really like to hear the councils, because it's a council. We make this decision. Okay? You're the guys I want to hear from. Okay?
We make what decision?
We make the decisions for policies and rules and regulations in the city.
Salary of them.
No, we only make the decision that we have the salary commission, and then whatever they do, we will honor it. I have no challenge with that whatsoever, none whatsoever. We're the one that set the policies and stuff. Staff and the mayor's responsibility is to carry those out. Very clear.
So I actually need some clarification from what you're recommending. One of them was, instead of having an affirmative vote by 3 for salary, that only 2, a majority could make the change. The second one that I'm hearing you recommend is that increases would be effective after the referendum have passed, regardless of the budget year. So right now, we're looking at salaries annually for the start on the first of the budget year. But you're saying if the salary commission chooses to increase, that increase would happen as soon as it could.
Which would require a budget amendment, right?
Which could, yes, it would. In technical senses, where we would have been spending more money than we outlined.
Citywide, they're done during the budget.
Right. If there was a budget amendment, then we would have to wait until that came up in the next election, and whatever that would be, is then the change would happen until after that.
Now I'm sorry. I want to make sure I get everything clear. Is if the action is for the commission says increase salaries, that increased salary would, and you're saying that the ordinance would change that to happen as soon as possible. And let's just say they made a decision in April, referendum's done in May, June 1st or July 1st, now the new salary takes in place. The budget does not reflect that. So we would need to bring back a budget amendment to reflect the change. That would, the salary still goes into effect.
So the way when we interviewed...
Right, but you're saying something different.
Well, what I was saying there is that we have to wait for the 30 days if there's a
referendum.
Right. Correct. If there's an amendment that comes forward, then that goes to an election.
So wait, so when you say amendment, we're kind of confusing terms here. If there was a referendum, and the referendum and got enough votes or enough people to sign up on there, then this would go to a general election.
So what happens is, let's just use an example so everyone has an understanding. So let's say the commission makes a decision on May 1st to increase salaries. At that point, there's a 30-day referendum period. If nothing happens with regard to the citizens filing a referendum, then, as it is right now, the increase would go into effect in the first pay period of 2020. That's when it would go, the way it's written right now. Okay, back to May 1st, there's a referendum, and there's going to be then a vote on it. There will be no salary increase until a decision is made on the vote. Okay, if there is, and that's just with regard to increases. If there's a decrease that the commission says, the decrease will not go into effect until the beginning of the next term for each council member. So essentially, January of 2020 would be the next circumstance. If you want it to go into effect immediately, you have to revise the ordinance to have it go into effect after the referendum period, because the ordinance right now provides it would be in 2020, January of 2020.
Exactly.
So I guess I would say, you're looking to request those changes when we get to the second read?
I guess it would be a question of whether the council has the sentiment to want to include those type of changes, just so that we can be prepared to have the appropriate language for that. If it's not something you want to do with regard to one or none or individually, then let us know that way.
I'd be inclined to want to discuss the majority item further and take a look at that, not necessarily the immediate effect.
I have no opinion on the immediate effect. No change requested for the ordinance.
Agreed. The only thing I mentioned is the 1 time per year at this point. Interested in discussing the others.
Discussion.
1 time per year?
Just the way the first reading is.
So the way it reads right now, that's the
meeting time. Meeting. Okay.
All right.
I'd be interested in making the adjustments.
Okay. All right, so I guess we move forward with some potential wording.
Yeah, it's something that's allowed by MRSC. And, it works to our advantage. Well, okay, great, we got one. So let's use it if we can.
Okay. All right. Pass on that one. All right. Action items. Do you want to do the right thing first?
Step in.
Okay. Hey, can I say something about this?
Not till citizen comments.
Yeah. Move consent agenda to approve January 8, 2019 City Council minutes, and Part 2, approve December 31st, 2018 vouchers in the amount of $146,817.91, and January 15th, 2019 vouchers in the amount of $28,646.49.
You have a second? Any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Action item B, general business. Part 1, authorize the purchase of asset management assessment and software in the amount of $29,250, and authorize Mayor Peterson to enter into the agreement with Ameresco Asset Sustainability Group, LLC, for license use and access of the Asset Planner software.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion?
I love that. I think it's a great idea.
No further discussion? All right.
Okay.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, pass.
Part 2, authorize.
Did you say yes? Did you say
We good?
Yes, go ahead.
General business part 2, authorize purchase of a John Deere 7500A mower in the amount of $72,200.20.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. 6 out of 6.
General business part 3, authorize the purchase of a John Deere 2500B mower in the amount of $40,863.69.
Any seconds?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on this one? Not hearing any. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
General business part 5, confirm Mayor Peterson's appointments of James Bonker, Joanne Wisman, and Holly Woodruff in the Liberty Lake Sewer Commission. I'm sorry, Salary Commission. Really close.
Way to win points, you. All right, do we have a second?
Just personally.
Do we have a second? Okay, we have a second. I'd like to open up. I'd love to hear from the appointees. Just introduce yourself before we take a vote here. Who wants to go first, Jim?
I'll go first. I'm Jim Banker, and listening to the discussion about the proposed rules, I think Mike's got a good idea. Rather than having unanimous, a majority makes a lot of sense. And the other thing I would say is that whatever recommendations are made, they should coincide with the budget period, so you don't have to do something special. I don't know exactly what the budget period is, but it would just make a lot more sense if whatever recommendations we would come up with respect to salary be incorporated into a budget period. And so anyway, those are Jim Banker. Hi, thanks. Anything I can do to help? Kind of exciting things happening in the city. I think the Lime scooters, that'd be cool. I'm
tired of riding the golf cart all over the place, you know, so that'd be kind of interesting. And
Do you have a financial background?
I do have a financial background, yes. CFO for a lot of different companies. And I guess a couple of other things. Excited to see that the governor has some money for some road improvements within the city. That's huge. Very interesting dialogue on ethics. I'm waiting to see Mike's golf cart. I was hoping you'd do it up like a NASCAR thing, you know. But,
We'll work on that.
Yeah. And I like the goats. I think that sounds cool. So, anyway.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank
sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Holly or Joan? You guys can flip a coin.
Guess I'm up next.
Hi, Holly.
Hi, I'm Holly Woodruff. You all heard from me before, and you will again. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I think that was quite a Freudian slip there on the
Keep that in mind.
kind of shocking me. Whoa. Anyway, I don't have the financial background, possibly, that the others do, but I have served as president of boards before, where I had to supervise paid personnel, and I also served a couple of terms on the budget committee at Earlham College in Richmond, Indiana, where we had to determine everything. I told RJ in the interview that I'm one that will sit with his budget and go through every single line, because that's what we had to do. It was about a $150 million budget. So I have had experience in helping to determine fair salaries. I want us to have the best city government possible, and I think as a social worker, fair compensation is social justice matter. Everybody should be fairly compensated for their work. I'm also a taxpayer, so I want to be sure we get good value for our money as well. I do want to thank Katie and RJ, because I thought the interview process was really fun. I don't normally say that about interviews, but I came away, and whether I'd been chosen or not, I was really glad I'd done the interview, just because I learned something that day. I got to know Katie and RJ a little bit better, and like I said, it was fun. So I'm looking forward to working with Jim and Joan, and whatever you decide to do. Kind of agree with Jim on the 2 out of the 3. I think having worked at a Quaker college and having to do the consensus thing, it's a long and hard process. But I've learned a lot from that as well. And it is easier, again, having been on a budget committee and having to stick with, this is our budget year. Our budget year ran from July 1st to June 30th because of being a college. And so I personally think that's easier. But whatever the council decides, obviously we'll work with. So thank you very much. I look forward to it.
Remind us that you're the president of the Friends.
Oh, I'm also the president of the Friends of the Library. So, yes, and I'm also an adjunct professor of social work at Indiana University School of Social Work. So I teach online, and my course is in its 2nd week right now. So anyway, so that's yeah. I've also been a radio and television engineer, and I've been an industrial piping designer. So.
Thank you for your service.
Thanks, Holly. Jim?
My name is Joan Wisman. I've been here for about 2.5 years with my husband. He loves it here because of the golf courses. I'm originally from the Met-Hell Valley, so I'm from a small town of 400 or 500 people in Patera, so I'm a little town person, but I'm also a big city. I have a unique background, I think, for this commission, as in I have over 20 years of human resource experience, specifically in compensation and benefits, in over 75 countries around the world. I've done it for multi-billion-dollar companies, and I've done it for little nonprofits. So I've done the big boys and the little boys, and I've done private and nonprofit, and I've probably seen every scenario there is. How much to pay someone in Kenya or Zimbabwe or Dubai or whatever. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. As to the ordinance, 2 out of 3. Salaries can be very emotional so sometimes it is hard to get all three. I agree it should be budget, the budget year, because when you have people that are electorate and some people who come on and come off, you want to do it on a budget year so everybody is treated the same. What else was there? As for a referendum or any of that, I think you need to go with the lawyer and whatever you say. I'm pretty good with numbers, so I'll be asking RJ for a lot of spreadsheets. I also have a very definite process of the way that you look at compensation and analyze it, right? It's about the job first, right? You have to look at the job, you have to look at the scope, you have to look at what people are currently making, and total compensation. Base pay, bonuses, commissions, perks, all of that kind of thing. Then you have to go out to your market. What's your definition of the market? That's the biggest thing. We're going to compare ourselves against Seattle. We're going to compare ourselves against Moses Lake. Or we're going to compare ourselves against Pullman. Not only just the size, but you also have to look at how the organization works. Do they have a police department? What is their mayor's responsibilities compared to the city council? What's the city administrator's role versus the other? So really looking at the roles and responsibilities in comparison, not just the population. So I do have a process that I go through. I've done it probably 1,000 times. I will definitely get my input from my 2 cohorts as to how it should be done. But hopefully you have faith in all of us that we can do it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, volunteers. All right. Any further discussion? Not all in favor of appointing our 3 volunteers? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Welcome. Thank you. Okay. Now I guess we are on first read ordinances.
City of Liberty Lakes, Spokane County, Washington, ordinance number 131-P. An ordinance of the City of Liberty Lake, Washington, amending ordinance number 131A, passed on August 5th, 2008, entitled Establishing a Municipal Library Fund Change-Making Account for the City of Liberty Lake for the purpose of making change for cash transactions.
I think somebody had asked if we would entertain.
I'd like to move that we waive the rules and move this to second read ordinance.
Okay. Any discussion on waive? All right. All in favor of suspending the rules? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
I move the ordinance.
Wait, the second.
Andy's got it.
Andy's did the second.
City of Liberty Lake, Spokane County, Washington, ordinance number 131-B. An ordinance of the City of Liberty Lake, Washington, amending ordinance number 131A, passed on August 5th, 2008, entitled Establishing a Municipal Library Fund Change-Making Account for the City of Liberty Lake for the purpose of making change for cash transactions.
No, move that we accept the ordinance as a resolution.
Second.
We have a second. Okay, since it's an ordinance, any citizen comments on this ordinance? Dan? Nope. Awesome. Okay. All right. So all in favor, say aye. Oh, raise your right hand. The ordinance, right? Okay. No opposed. All right. 6 out of 6. All right. We got the next one, 176.
City of Liberty Lake, Spokane County, Washington, ordinance number 176-A. An ordinance of the City of Liberty Lake, Washington, amending ordinance number 176, passed on July 21st, 2009, entitled Establishing an Independent Salary Commission in order to set the salaries of the city's elected officials, providing for the appointment and terms of commission members and for removal of the same, establishing effective dates for salary increases and decreases approved by the commission, subject to referendum, providing for severability and establishing an effective date.
Okay. So when we bring the second read back next meeting, then that'll be our opportunity to make changes to it. Okay, great. All right, upcoming agenda items, Katie.
So we have a workshop at 7 o'clock on the food truck. We have, we had noted a resolution adopting a public arts policy, but I don't think we're going to be ready to adopt anything by the 5th. If I'm wrong, correct me. Do you guys all agree? Okay. We'll bring back the Poe snow contract with answers to some of the questions that came up, and then the second read ordinance on the salary commission. And a resolution on the naming of a road. Yes. So, yeah, please, if you have names that you'd like to suggest, we're so glad we put this on you, not us. Give us those names before the meeting so Lisa can check to see if they're available.
Yes, and in that line.
Uh-oh. Oh, Olden has a name.
I have, and when we get over the laughing part, it's serious, we're naming the street.
Langford Lane.
I like the alliteration.
Yeah. To begin with, it's going to have north in front of it. Okay? And my suggestion is that we call it Pecos.
Oh my God.
Okay? North Pecos. And it's spelled P-E-C-O-S. So that's my suggestion.
Okay, there's a suggestion.
There's a suggestion.
I have another subject to that. I'm not even going to comment on that. I have a question here. To be determined, it's been on here for a long period of time. Workshop discussion, review section 1C of Ordinance 168, accepting donations. We need to move that up the list somewhere. Because if we're going to be having I think we can incorporate that when we get together to talk about the art policy and stuff. Because it's specifically about 1C, and 1C is where it refers to the city. That's ultimate decision. And it says council. So I assume, did a council member ask to have that on there?
Yes, and I think you brought it up, that's how it got on the list. The donations?
No. Not me.
Okay, so we put this on as a tracking sheet, so I don't recall, neither does Ann, how it got there. If you would like us to add it to a future agenda, just let us know which one. Because right now, we're not actively working on that.
Well, but actually, we will be working on that when you consider that specifically came up in Jen and the committee's policy.
Correct.
That is specifically in there because it has been eliminated in our current one. If we're going to go according to... Yeah.
It might be better, Mike, if I may interject, to just figure out what you want to do relative to the policy with the art, and then, because you're talking about the 168 ordinance again in subsection C.
Yes, because they refer to it in their policy.
Right, so I mean, I think I think my recommendation is before you go change a separate ordinance that applies unilaterally to all of the city, figure out what you want to do with regard to the policy on the Arts Commission, and then you can address then, once you made a decision there, as it relates to what you want to do locally for subsection C at 168. That would be my recommendation.
I'm comfortable with that.
And just kind of at a very ministerial level, I'd like to offer something. If we have a policy that's broken or that's not working well, then we at staff, we need to know what that is. It's very difficult for us to go through all the policies and just start revamping them. So if there's something that we have in like the donation policy that's broken, we need to know what the council's feedback on what is not working well for that policy. Because when I read the donation policy, I think it seems to be working very well, but that's just my opinion. So if you think that something's not working well with the donation policy, we need to know what that is.
All right, anything else? No, I guess we're adjourned. Thanks everybody for coming.